We're going to start the meeting now. Please note that the meeting is being recorded on WebEx, and the recording will be available on the MHSF website. So we can start the recording. And welcome, everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is our August 2023 meeting of the Mental Health San Francisco Implementation Working Group. And I'm now calling the meeting to order. All right, and then we're going to take roll right now to establish quorum. So when your name is called by Diana, please respond with here or present.
Okay. Valerie had mentioned that member Fields has what I believe is an excused absence. I'm gonna give you Valerie. Okay. Member Gonzalez.
Yep, here.
Member Hammer.
Here.
Member Lassar, have we heard from member Lassar? No, okay, so no member Lassar. Member Lipton.
Here.
Member McGuigan.
Here.
Member Patterson. Have we heard from member Patterson?
No.
Okay. Member Salinas.
Here.
Member Short.
Here.
Member Wong.
Here.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 10. So we do have a quorum. And so absent are Fields, Lassar, and Patterson. So then, so then per IWG bylaws, the IWG must vote to excuse an absent member from a working group meeting. If the working group does not take such a vote at the meeting or at previous meetings, then the minutes shall note that the absence is unexcused. Any member who misses 3 regular meetings of the working group within a 12-month period without an express approval of the working group at or before each missed meeting will be deemed to have resigned from the working group 10 days after the third unapproved absence. I'm wondering if she's getting somebody.
I think so.
So I'm wondering if we should wait for Valerie to get whoever she's getting or vote, and then I don't know that she's getting somebody.
I suggest that we just postpone this till later. We got the director here. We should,
Okay, yeah, she's at front desk is calling.
starting a half hour late.
Okay.
We should,
So I will rip this page out so we remember to vote on absences.
Okay.
So then we are gonna be at slide 4, Haley.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You know, my legs are even that long.
I know.
Short.
God.
So today we have the following goals. We're going to be updated on Mental Health San Francisco by Director Cunnins. We're going to be updated on management hearing coming up. We'll continue our discussion of our draft resolutions and then an update on IWG governance. Anything we missed in terms of meeting goals that anybody has? All right, and our presenters today will be next slide, Dr. Cunnins, and then Heather Weisbrod and Angelica Almeida presenting on the case management. Both of them are. All right, and why don't we also postpone the approval of the meeting minutes? I should respect Dr. Cunnins' time.
We should go to slide number 9. please.
Thanks for the rush. Thank you. It's great to be here in person again. It's good to see everyone. I will give my update. I have to jump to another meeting at 10, so I'm able to come back. So, depending on the agenda and not to confuse things, jump back. Today I wanted to cover a few general updates and share a bit of the budget summary, which we had discussed my coming to you all with about what got passed and what is intended for this fiscal year's budget. Next slide. We presented, so under my general updates, we presented a hearing on BHS-wide case management, much of which is sort of covered under the domain Office of Coordinated Care and Mental Health SF. We wanted to share that presentation with you today, and you'll hear it shortly. The hearing, we have some upcoming hearings. On September 29th. There will be a second hearing on Care Court. There will be also additionally scheduled hearings on contracts and an overall system of care review. Much of that, I think, will be familiar to all of you. I know it's sort of an ongoing topic of conversation in this group. And it's our attempt yet again to synthesize this. You can see what the sort of assignment is for the system of care, including how our contracted out services fit into the system of care, how components of mental health San Francisco fit into the system of care. And you can then see it goes on, how jail health, psychiatric emergency services, and supportive and other types of housing fit into our system of care. Our intent or the request from the supervisor is to include how all services, both residential, inpatient and outpatient, housing units, low barrier drop-in, case management, any other service is incorporated into a list or map. And I know our mapping, versions of our mapping have been shared, and our goal is to continue to refine those.
Are these all in the new homelessness behavioral health committee?
Yes, so these will all be heard. Just for everyone who isn't as familiar. There's a new homelessness and behavioral health subcommittee. It's being chaired by Supervisor Ronan. Other members of that subcommittee include Supervisors Handelman and Walden. Next slide. So turning now abruptly to the budget summary. I think some of this has been sort of alluded to or discussed here, and so we wanted to kind of bring it all together into one presentation. DPH's budget overall covered our own growth in particular areas, but also achieved local general fund savings. And I think you're all aware that there was a decrease in city budget overall and including our own DPH budget. However, the DPH budget increased by 6% compared to the prior year and will remain stable in year 2 of the adopted budget. The overall budget includes negotiated raises for staff and inflationary cost growth for other costs, including contracted services. The majority, more than 70% of the DPH budget relies on revenue. That includes Medi-Cal and other sources of revenue. Despite this needed growth, our local general fund support is reduced proportionately from about 32% to 27% in order to balance the local budget in the face of slowing local tax revenues and the end of federal emergency support related to COVID. We were able to achieve this decrease in local funding without any service reductions to core services. Next slide. So these are 2 pie graphs that were shared during our budget hearings. On the left side of the pie, you can see expenditures within behavioral health. Again, this is not DPHY, this is just behavioral health services. And on the right, you can see our funding sources. So expenditures include the following sort of buckets. This is the way we organize our expenditures. I'll make sort of a caveat for a moment. In yellow is mental health SF and dedicated homelessness services under Prop C. I just want to note there's an error in that amount. It should be 95 million and not 80 million. Apologies, we caught it after we had sent it out to all of you. Substance use related disorder services, 111 million. Children's mental health, 99 million, and adult health, 430 million. Note, just to kind of put a pin in it, the Prop C services and mental health SF related services, as you know, are by and large to adults. So that is the way we do our bookkeeping. Our funding sources are to the right. I'll start from the area that this group is aware of and working on is the yellow, again, Prop C dedicated homelessness local tax at 95 million. There is additional opioid settlement money, 47 million. Grants, 76 million. County general fund, 128 million. California health welfare sales tax and motor vehicle license fees, as well as something called realignment dollars, which are from the state sort of paying back or realigning towards mental health, 152 million. California Mental Health Services Act, 92 million. Medi-Cal and other revenue, 129 million. I think, let me go on from here. Next slide.
Actually, a quick question.
Yes,
That on the
and I hope I'm going to be able to answer. Yes,
fire slide,
yes.
You go backwards, please.
the funding sources, are these recurring or are these one time?
It's variable depending on funding source. So for example, opioid settlement is not one time, but is time delimited, and that number changes over time. That there's a big, a larger upfront budget, and then it decreases
I assume the
significantly.
grants are the same thing.
Grants are the same. thing.
They quote taper you.
They taper you. Other revenues, as you can imagine, vary. Mostly they vary based on tax revenue, a la Prop C, a la the California Mental Health Services Act, and so forth.
Okay. Thank you.
Next slide.
And wait, so on the yellow that shows the Prop C, both expenditures and revenue, that's just structured to match each other, right? But there are homeless services scattered throughout SUD and adult systems of care.
Yes. And in fact, the majority of people who we provide care to across the system are experiencing homelessness, even if we don't specifically pay for them out of mental health SF and Prop C dollars. Next slide. So through this process and beyond, we set forth 3 main priorities for us, and I just want to talk about each of them. Mostly you have heard about them peripherally, but I want to also highlight the extent to which these priorities are really profoundly affecting our planning and operations side. So first, we want to maximize every opportunity that we see and can achieve through CalAIM. CalAIM is, you can see there's a lot of verbiage there. This is about Medicaid or Medi-Cal reform, where it has a goal of improving health outcomes and quality of life for people with Medi-Cal or Medi-Cal enrollees. by specifically addressing barriers to access to care and delivering equitable, coordinated, and person-centered care. So that is a lot of words. But the meaning, as we've discussed here, is to enact a lot of changes in how we do Medi-Cal-related business. These specific programs that you see listed include new services for people who are Medi-Cal enrolled, something called enhanced case care management, which will allow us to bill Medi-Cal for some of the things we've been doing on the local taxpayer only dime. We are also going to be able to bill Medi-Cal for some key services called community support, which had not been previously Medi-Cal billable. One example is our sobering center. The alcohol sobering center had previously last year been deemed or designated a community support. And this year we have applied and were approved to include our drug sobering or summarize. It will take us a while to realize the full potential for drawing down Medi-Cal dollars. And the point there is to alleviate or the burden on local fund dollars to be able to invest in other places. And then finally, and then I just want to say a couple more words, expansion of justice involved services. There is a sea change happening in terms of how we can provide health related services to people in jail, where previously in general, the health services in jail were not Medi-Cal reimbursable, but that is a huge, huge change whereby we can deliver and bill Medi-Cal for services. There's layers of complexity under that sentence that I'm not sure I can represent totally accurately, but that is what's going on. Additionally, what is not on this slide, but is very important to behavioral health, is there's a number, really much more sort of fundamental change around how we document care and bill for care under CalAIM. This profoundly it is affecting already and will continue to affect the way all of our providers deliver care. Ideally, it will make it more flexible, more person-centered, and will bring us in line with the rest of the way healthcare is delivered and the physical health side. But it is a huge change and burden to all of our providers as they and we own this system together. I'm sure Member Salinas has things to say about this. Just to say, next slide. We are continuing as a second priority, continuing to grow and invest in behavioral health services. This is largely enabled by Prop C and the work of this group. So it includes our implementing prior year investments, continuing to open the remaining residential care and treatment beds, continuing to complete hiring, in particular in our Office of Coordinated Care, to continue to implement our street overdose response teams, our overdose response work, and to open our TAY or traditional age youth and transgender behavioral health services. So there is, as we've discussed, a projected shortfall in revenues for Prop C, but there is currently one-time savings to carry programs through this 2-year budget. It is possible, I'll say what is on the slide, a long-term plan, however, is needed to sustain the $100 million spending plan.
I have a quick question. The 98 million, I assume this is a combination of both ongoing expenditures or continuing expenditures, as well as in some cases, money that has not been expended because, for example, for TAY and things like that.
Exactly,
Sorry, so.
Exactly.
So it's a combination.
and mostly it's ongoing.
Okay,
Because we have mostly started and are spending money on the things that were planned.
thank you.
And since we're asking, so with residential care, do you mean RCF beds or?
All that dashboard that you all have seen, ranging from lock subacute, RCF, RCFE,
Well,
to
diagnosis beds.
hummingbird, sort of the range, yes.
Burn and alcohol site stand.
So we have been using the term to be as broad as possible, residential care and treatment.
Is, oh yeah, I'll just wait till the end for other questions about those beds.
And just to note back to your question, 98 is budgeted, and of course, we want to spend it. And we are working aggressively to open everything that's planned. So for example, our crisis diversion unit, is budgeted,
Yep.
but we won't end up spending the full allocation because it's not opening till months from now.
Yeah, I mean, if I went back and looked at the last dashboard, I think which we got in April, and it looked like there was still a shortfall of the 400, about somewhere between, I think, 80 or so beds, I think.
I think
At
the
that-
last one we have up should show about 50 bed
Okay.
shortfall. So we've opened, probably since we last discussed it here. I am losing the math in my head, but the last sort of swath of beds to open are residential step down. We opened 70 of those. I think that puts us between 350 and 360 of the
I
400.
don't know, you have the crisis diversion, and I know you've got the TAY coming online at some point. So is the 35 million sufficient to cover full operation of all 400 beds?
Now it is using one time. We will have it if tax revenue doesn't recover. We will have a shortfall and need to make alternate plans to keep all beds that are projected to open in an ongoing way. Right now, we are able to fund for the next 2 years everything that's open,
Everything gets open and will be open?
and that will be open.
Okay.
Yeah. Next slide. So I also want to highlight two more important investments for us. One is money that was put in last year's budget was to grow services for clients who, after a 5150 hold, this is, as you all know, an involuntary psychiatric hold. We are growing a program that does careful and close follow-up, offers follow-up for those folks specifically. That includes dedicated case or care management, utilization management, so we have better sort of back-end capacity to track folks and encourage them to get into ongoing care, and to enhance coordination with our residential system of care. We also included in the budget a 4.75% increase for cost of doing business. And last, but by no means least, the thing that is also happening this year, and we've talked about it here, the largest expansion of DPH's Epic electronic health record. This is the largest implementation since the department's initial implementation in 2019. And I know a number of you are super interested in that, and we're sort of trying to figure out how best to, bring this group into that. This is a really big deal for those of you who are not clinicians and have not worked clinically. I can't overstate what an impact this is. It is most of our operations are already on an electronic health record of some sort, but it is not organic to the way behavioral health does business. And yet it is absolutely vital for sort of us being integrated with the rest of our network, with the way behavioral health is being asked to modernize, but it requires top to bottom changes. So our team, our IT team, our finance team, our behavioral health team, experts from around the department are working both internally and with all of our community-based providers to be ready and do this. So this is really going to be a big, big push for us, for those of you in programmatic roles, for this entire, for the upcoming year plus. Next slide. I want to also turn the attention to overdose for a couple of moments. First, I want to speak about some of the new work that we are hoping to implement that we are calling under the bucket high impact interventions to reduce overdose. In the budget this year, there are funding set aside for wellness hubs, including 3 hubs with staggered openings. We are very attentive to both the site and then the potential neighborhood impact around the wellness hub. We are expanding our procurement of naloxone. Historically, the state has been the main provider of naloxone, but has been unable to keep up with local need. We are also supporting a piloted program in the hospital called the Addiction Care Team. That team provides addiction consults to hospitalized patients, aiming to stabilize them once they're in the hospital, but help connect folks to care when they are discharged.
And wellness hubs from opioid settlement funds,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Next slide. I wanted to also share what we were calling high impact interventions to reduce overdose. These include implementation of contingency management. We've spoken about contingency management here. This is basically a form of substance use disorder treatment where folks are incentivized to participate in or demonstrate healthy behaviors. It is particularly the most effective intervention for people with stimulant, including methamphetamine use disorder, nationally and locally. It's been implemented sort of smaller scale, and we really want to grow it here. We think this has the potential to have a big impact. We are funded to support what is being called sober living, which is supportive environments for folks aiming to continue their recovery, for example, following residential treatment.
Is that a new category? Because I don't remember that being in the overdose prevention plan, but I don't know if this is straight from.
This is
that
not
plan.
straight from the plan. This
Yeah.
is coming out of the mayor budget.
Oh, I did.
This
I
year.
remember that being discussed from her budget. Okay, so it's that. Thank you.
So is this like step downs or is it?
I think the design is still in progress. And so TBD once it's procured.
I would
and-
imagine it's like Minna Street and that kind of thing. I'm just throwing that out there. but-
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, because we do have several clients that want longer term SLE, like say a PSA, a sober PSH. I mean, we have a lot of clients who are trying to get sober currently in PSH sites and cycle in and out of treatment and then come right back to where someone's immediately selling them substances the second they walk in the door. And they very much want, but are not independent, can't do co-op, right? Can't do co-op. So,
Because they're not independent enough.
no, yeah.
Got it. Right. So that's super helpful. There's also, so some of this is still getting worked through about program design. And I think what you just said, member Salinas, is very much heard.
I agree. It's also difficult because of the housing first model, as you know. And so it's almost like a new category needs to be developed. So it doesn't necessarily cut into that model, but it creates some, you can have a whole discussion and I will stop myself now.
And I think we appreciate,
Yeah, we have to be creative with it. Yeah.
Because there's lots of folks who, after they're in a PSH site, then want to be sober. And so what's the option to be able to transfer them?
Right.
And then if they relapse, transfer them back. I mean, there are models like that in other places, you
Yeah.
know, where you
The
can move between different.
That's amazing. I'd like to know about those.
Yeah.
The other barrier is, the
Super
other
heads.
barrier is finding places to put housing where there's not people doing drugs and selling drugs all nearby, Yeah, as you know.
Snowy Valley.
Because-
could- my
Right?
neighborhood
Exactly.
had- Of
You
course,
try that.
they would. Yes.
so I appreciate this feedback. And I think we hear that loud and clear, sort of all the versions of what you just described. And also also the housing first model is a great way to get people into housing and stabilize them, yet it doesn't necessarily serve everyone's need at all times. So very much. So stay tuned. The last three are themes that you have heard from us previously. We are working to expand medications, further expand medication for addiction treatment. I want, just as a perhaps sub point, mention the importance of methadone at this point in time, because fentanyl is so very potent opioid. Clinically, folks are finding that buprenorphine may be less effective than had previously been seen and studied in the era of heroin, a less potent compared to fentanyl opioid. The challenge, as you also know, with methadone is that it can only be prescribed and dispensed in highly regulated, what's called in California, very old school narcotic treatment programs, more sort of modern language opioid treatment programs. So we are looking at both ways to expand access as well as flexibility of those sometimes very rigid programs. We are working to further address and invest in racial disparities in opioid use disorder and opioid overdose. I think that line should actually be addressing racial disparities in overdose. We are right now in the process of evaluating a round of an RFP to make some grants to organizations that will address overdose among Black African Americans. That grant, that money was actually funded from Mental Health Services Act money, but this year's budget will allow us to add to that investment. And then finally, but not finally, is increasing and improving connection to care and SRO, conducting both linkage to care and overdose prevention. We know that folks who are living in SROs are also at high risk of overdose, and we'll have some budget to further strengthen that. Okay, last.
Can I just ask what, you might have said, the funding amount for the RFP that just went out or that's getting responded to?
The funding amount for the RFP that went out, we'll.
Okay, it's no biggie. Okay.
two additional programs, next slide, to mention. We are in the process and close to implementing Care Court. And we've spoken about this here, just to note that that go live is supposed to be October 1st. We are working to set up infrastructure. That does not come with funding to increase treatment by and large, except for a very small amount. But it does, what the state did also provide, however, is a one-time grant, and you've heard me talk about this here, of infrastructure grant of 32 million. This is over 4 years to support sort of a very pre-programmed number of things, including transitional housing, stabilization housing or units, board and care patches, housing navigation. And so we will be trying to, we'll be using that bridge housing funding to help not only with housing for Care Court participants, but other San Franciscan cities. Of note, I wanted to just share some new Mental Health Services Act investments, including an additional $1.5 million for peer support programs and training, and a 3-year, $15 million pilot with our colleagues at Human Rights Commission to provide talk therapy program with a focus on Black African American
Is
residents.
it harm reduction coalition?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, oh,
The,
HRC.
Human Rights.
I was thinking Harm Reduction Therapy Center.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't
Interesting.
know they do that.
Not HRC, not HRC, also known as Harm Reduction
Right.
Coalition. It's the Human Rights Commission, with whom we are collaborating on this program to address mental health in just Black African Americans. And last but not least,
Oh, like the Human Rights Commission of the city.
Yeah.
of the
Okay.
city, my bad.
So they get HRC, the human,
Human
the,
Rights Committee is HRC.
but
Yeah.
there's
There's a lot of HR, oh, the Human Rights Campaign.
the Human Rights Campaign. That's what I was. Okay.
Last but not least, I wanted to just share some of the capital grant money which we have received and been sort of mentioning with all of you, but sort of seeing it all in one space on one slide is really fantastic. We received a almost $34 million state grant to build new psychiatric facilities for youth, which are sorely lacking in the city. This will include 12 inpatient psychiatric beds. This is still several years off, and an additional capital investment in what's called intensive outpatient treatment. That will include integrated substance use disorder treatment, including a step down and standalone program for youth and including transitional age youth. The city has also received a number of additional grants from the state, including for what has been termed by the state community care expansion. This includes $7.5 million for lease or acquisitions for licensed board and care operators. This is stabilize that sector, and $9.5 million to support renovation and expansion of the residential treatment step down site on Treasure Island. And then finally, we also received $6.7 million to build out the crisis stabilization unit in the Tenderloin. So these state grants are enabling us to do more infrastructure development. These are all one-time grants, and sort of an answer to the earlier question, are enabling us to preserve services in the city for the moment, in the face of some revenue decreases. Thank you.
So, Dr. Kunis, so if these are one time, then how do we then get the fund to kind of continue to ongoing to support these investments?
So these are exactly. So some of the funds are one time because they're building out
Uh-huh.
the site, and we have operating costs from elsewhere. So an example is the residential step down on Treasure Island, Prop C will fund the operating costs. the crisis diversion unit, we have operating funds from Prop C, but for example, under the $33 million bridge housing for the state, we do not have, that grant is, for example, for 4 years, and we don't have ongoing operating costs. So the state has really invested a lot of money in what is being termed by and large behavioral health infrastructure grants. But I would say a county and local perspective is that many of these grants don't have clear pathways to ongoing operational costs. And that is, so I would just urge you to read the fine print when you see the announcements from the state. But this is really a challenge for localities and will be for us in some ways. We are aware of these and trying to find ways to figure out ongoing costs. Or when we are putting, for example, in the bridge housing, more money for transitional housing units and so forth. We're not building new things. We're using it to expand either procured number of beds or to stabilize the sector, realizing that we don't have partial solutions, but not full solutions.
So with the new beds coming on, I'm just wondering, because we're running currently into an issue where there are no dual diagnosis programs that can take somebody with a wheelchair. So the only one that there was Joe Ruffin, that has been closed for quite some time now.
There's literally none now?
Of the dual diagnosis programs, right? So we have someone sitting in jail and, you know, Health Right and Harbor Lights can't take them because, you know, they have definitely increased the number of our folks that they see over the years, because we couldn't refer before our folks. It was very hard but I want to, you know, contextualize in that they have been taking our dually diagnosed folks, but some folks are still going to be too acute to go to their health.
Because of physical health needs.
No, because of their behavioral health needs. Because Health Right does take folks with wheelchair. They're not being accepted because of their level of behavioral health needs. So there's still going to be some folks that are too behaviorally challenged that they feel that they can manage them. And so that they really do need a dual diagnosis program, but there is not currently dual diagnosis programs that can take someone in a wheelchair. So I think just around examining that we're building out these programs, we need to have wheelchair accessible programs. Yes.
So, sorry, I just want to push on this point a little more. So it sounds like there's programs for folks with very serious both mental health and SUD, but not also in a wheelchair or physically,
Right. Not
who need physical help.
they're not wheelchair accessible. Yeah.
So that is our intent.
There's all stairs to go in, right? Because they're all older
Buildings,
right?
the San Francisco penalty. So we are aware. I just want to make sure I'm clear what the challenge is. We are aware of that as a challenge. We have had one of the outstanding bed types that we are intending to procure is exactly what you're describing. It has been slow. We have faced some procurement challenges, but that is on deck for us to figure out. I hope this is and exactly this and the situation you're describing. So we have heard that myself, the team, loud and clear.
And we continue to have challenges with the medical detox. It continues to be we haven't, it's just, we can't really get somebody in there. The last time we tried to send someone that was a little higher function, because it's basically, you know, there's the system that they already had for social detox. And it's just now being used also for the medical detox, but it doesn't quite work as well for the medical detox, right? Because it's a lot of hours, you know, before when you went to Joe Healy, you just walked right in and they were ready for you, right? And you kind of, the process at, oh, right, where you kind of, you wait hours, right? Everyone shows up in the morning and you wait hours to, and.
Are you saying
your
because like the
turn.
Medicare paperwork?
That's just their system,
Or it's
right?
more just how the whole,
Everyone shows up at 8:30 when they open and you kind of get in
Oh.
line.
everybody at once, yeah.
Everybody at once. The recent challenge that we also had, though, in particular with one client, is that apparently they didn't have a prescriber, right? So then that person was sent, they were told to go to the ED at the general to get benzos, right? And of course, so fortunately, they were in very close contact with our psychiatrist because of course at the ED, they were like, right? But then they were like, talk to the psychiatrist and the psychiatrist, and our psychiatrist confirmed with health, right? Yes, that's indeed what they were telling him to do. Go to the ED and get 4 weeks, which is also unusual, right? It's usually 2, I mean, maybe still it's a lot of benzos, right? And so of course they didn't want to prescribe it. And then they talked to the psychiatrist and then the psychiatrist said, yes, that is indeed what they need. And she did get him to prescribe the benzos. But then, he had to return the next day.
Let me, if I may, I need, I'm so sorry, I need to run to another meeting. Let me say that, I'd like to send one of my staff people to talk to you. Is that okay? About these specifics. We're, working through prescriber issues with weekly meetings with the team there and want to rectify all of those issues as well as this waiting issue. So there's, Dr. Pating has been working on this. Let me follow up with you outside the meeting if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just our.
Yeah. And I hope that there's been some improvements compared to several months ago. There was some.
This was in
staffing-
July. This was last month.
Okay, right. There was some, we were aware of some staff
It
challenges.
was June 21st. Sorry, it was June 21st. So 2 months ago.
So I'm hopeful that in the last couple of weeks it's better, but we'll follow up with you.
Okay.
So
That'd be great.
thank you, Dr. Kennedy. We know you need to leave, and we have the next speakers also have a short time period. So let's move to public comment and then we'll transition to our next topic. Diana?
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. The correct slide. So members of the public who wish to provide public comments on agenda item number 2, which is the MHSF Director's Update, can participate in 3 ways. First is in person, then we will call on people who are joining online, either by phone or through the WebEx. And if you are joining online, please raise your hand, and when it's your turn, Kaylee will unmute you and you can speak. If you are joining WebEx through the phone and would like to raise your hand, please press pound and then pound again, and then *3, and that raises your hand, and we will unmute you when it's your turn. Note that you will have 2 minutes to speak, and I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is coming to an end. Is there anybody who would like to speak in person? Okay, let me just get my thing, let you know. Okay, you may start in the pod. Yeah, there's the pod.
I'm sorry. I've kind of been a little behind and I don't have the agenda information or anything, just these slides, which I can't read. But it seems like this is a very sequestered meeting. It's hard to get into. I don't know why it's here, but it's really hard to get to. And I feel like the group is in a way sequestered because there's all these committees and stuff that are meeting and you guys are getting the information like after the ball is rolling. And I feel like the people here are the experts. You guys are in this group for a specific reason. Because you should be kind of helping to steer what happens instead of hearing about it afterwards and saying, oh, but wait, we need different kinds of housing that, of course, these committees haven't heard. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I just feel like there's a lot of agendas happening that you guys are not being privy to until after these decisions have been made. That makes me feel like it's difficult to be effective in what you're doing. And it would be great if this was a held in a place where the public was welcome rather than having to go, be escorted up and stuff. It's never been to a public meeting in a place like this. So I hope we can move it to a more equitable place. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else in person? Anybody online who would like to publicly comment? Anybody? I don't see any hands raised. Jen or Kaylee, do you see any raised hands? Fresh. Okay. Okay, then public comment is now closed and we can move to discussion item number 3, case management hearing recap. It's there. I want to break this one.
Should this be ever closer to us?
And let us know if you can't hear.
It's gonna stuck.
We'll talk loud. It's, yeah. It's generally, we're okay. It's generally pretty good at picking up stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. They'll, jump up and down if they see my perfect.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone again. So I know that I've met everyone before, but just to say I'm Angelica Almeida. I'm the director of the Adult and Older Adult System of Care. Valerie's under the table.
Valerie.
Sorry. And then Heather.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm Heather Weisbrod. I'm the Director of the Office of Coordinated Care with BHS.
So it's great to see everyone again. We came by to share a presentation. We did not do the presentation for the Board of Supervisors. Imo Momo did, who's our Director of Managed Care. We were asked to do a presentation on behavioral health and substance use case management. So wanted to share those slides here today. Imo is in Wisconsin right now regarding EPIC. So Heather and I are standing in, but of course we oversee this work, so we're happy to be here. And this was a hearing that was done a couple of weeks ago. Next slide, please. So this hearing was done on July 28th. And what the supervisors asked us to talk about, this was presented at the new Behavioral Health and Homelessness Committee. The supervisors asked us to touch on a couple of different items to really look at how many behavioral health and substance use case managers exist in our system. So to look at the number of FTEs that we have in our system, where people work, how people access those services, how we provide those services, what's the frequency of contact, and what our levels of case management are, and what average caseloads look like. And of course, as we're looking at FTEs, to really understand what does the vacancy look like in our system. We know that we are all experiencing this critical vacancy and crisis as we look to hiring staff. And so while the number of FTEs we have can be misleading, to actually understand what does our workforce look like and what the work we are doing to stabilize that. Next slide. Okay, so jumping into what is case management. Next slide, please. So we wanted to take this opportunity with the supervisors, as we have done here as well, and I know we've discussed, is really to understand what is case management and what does that mean. As we've talked about, case management is a term that's used very globally for a lot of different activities. So when we talk about it in specialty behavioral health, what does that mean? And so we wanted to highlight that case management is person specific, and it can vary in intensity, length of time we're providing services, location. So it could range from being offered at a clinic to being field-based, and what kinds of services are provided depend on the type of case management. But these types of services are provided within this. So a big part of this is care coordination. I just want to flag, of course, like when we talk about case management, often what we're talking about is care coordination activities or system navigation. So that's one part of the work that we're doing in specialty behavioral health, but among many other things, including linkages and referrals, benefit enrollment, housing support, medication support, crisis intervention. So really delving into those very specific behavioral health interventions, treatment planning, clinical interventions, and professional support. So there's a wide range of services that are provided within this case management bubble. And of course, this is not an exclusive list. There's many other things and roles that case managers play in our system. So when we talk about the different types of case management, we've identified 3 different levels here. There's a low intensity case management, for example, our outpatient clinics like South of Market Mental Health, Mission Mental Health, Hyde has an outpatient clinic. So these are services that are primarily based at a clinic where people go to receive that care. And it serves individuals who are low acuity, who don't have a high level of need for care coordination system navigation. This differs greatly from intensive case management, which of course is a really important part of our system. And this includes our intensive case management and full service partnership programs. These services are primarily field-based, working with individuals who are at heightened risk for negative outcomes, including hospitalization, incarceration, crisis contacts, and really working to stabilize individuals. Our goal, of course, is that people, and this is, as we all know, a lot of work that we're doing, but looking at how people flow through our system. So knowing there are times in people's lives where they may need intensive case management and then may stabilize and be able to transition to our low intensity case management. Again, there's a lot of work that we need to do here, but that's part of our goal. There's also our highest level of care is linkage and stabilization case management. So this is the most intensive, really working with people who had a recent hospitalization, for example, and really need that critical intervention to reduce further deterioration or decompensation in the community. This includes the linkage program at Citywide, CCRT, Best Neighborhoods, Best Team, et cetera. Again, these services are primarily field-based and targeting individuals who have a higher case management need. Again, including those exiting hospitals who are destabilized and need that additional support. Our goal, of course, is that people are able to stabilize here and then move into other parts of our system, including intensive case management and our outpatient clinics. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of work that we've been doing, and we know that this is a long journey. There's still a lot of work to be done, but a lot of work that we've been doing to strengthen collaboration and coordination. We have all had conversations, of course, that Heather and I have presented before, and really talking about the collaboration and flow from the Office of Coordinated Care into system of care, in this particular instance, talking about adults and older adults. And there's been a lot of opportunity for us. A lot of the work that's been done is really exciting. Also to say, we know that there's a long way to go. So we've been partnering very closely around this. Some recent things that have shifted is there's been increase in case conferencing. So for individuals who touch multiple parts of our system, who are really struggling, we want to make sure that we are intentional in our interventions and coordinated. And so really working together to identify what the best course is for the individual and supporting that and making sure that we're utilizing our resources well and we're intentional in how we're working with people. There's a lot of work being done around electronic health records. Everyone may know that we are getting ready to move towards Epic. Having a shared electronic health record with our medical systems and across the board will provide us with a lot of opportunity, again, to be more coordinated in how we know the many complexities in people's lives impact their behavioral health presentation. This will also allow us to communicate in a different way, in a much more streamlined way than we have before. So we're very excited about that transition.
Angelica, can I ask a question?
Go for it.
I watched some of this hearing when it happened even, and I still wasn't totally clear, like, was the board wanting to know about specifically just, direct DPH case management staff, like direct hires, or were they including, all the community-based organizations that also provide case management with DPH funding? I'm not even sure they understood that there was a distinction or not. But so when you, in terms of what you're discussing, I assume you're just talking about, no, okay, so the whole universe.
This is the whole universe under the DPH.
That's what I'm, okay. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
So kind of piggyback on what Sarah was talking about, I was thinking like, okay, so these case management, these linkages, so you guys are also using the existing program? Because I want to thank you. I don't know if it is Valerie who did it, but generated that whole list of the, oh my God, the things that I've been asking for years and years. What is it? I was so happy when I saw it. So I think existing programs, I say, wow, we have so many programs, and then a little blurb of each of the program that is online right now. So when you guys are doing these linkages, are you guys also going to utilize some of these programs that are also existing? Because I think some of these programs work, and I heard members that mentioned about Rippins was closed. I mean, I didn't have a chance to talk to Dr. Kunis, but I think
So Ruffin.
Ruffin. Yeah.
Rippins is not closed.
But so, I mean, I think we have some existing programs that, you know, we don't want to kind of let them fall off the grid, because I think if some of these existing program worked, I think we need to just kind of either reconnect or, you know, strengthen their services as well, so that we can also expand all these services that can be available. That's just, nobody's kind of piggybacking you, Sarah, but that's kind of my thought about, I'm all about the existing program and, you know, how we're going to preserve workers too. So that's where I'm coming.
Absolutely appreciate that. And I'll say, like, this hearing was specifically focused on case management, so outpatient services, but you're right, like, for those services to be successful, right, we have to have a robust system that includes residential treatment. And so all of these things work together. Today, we're focusing on just the case management piece, because that was what the hearing was about.
I mean, I would love to hear, I mean, I feel like we sometimes don't know till after the fact that someone has been having a lot of contact with one of the street teams. And I think it seems sometimes like they come to us sometimes in a way with like assumptions about like, what are you doing, you know? But, I mean, because one, I guess I would just step back just a slight bit into this, you know, the differences between the three types of programs, because I think there's definitely a lot of overlap between the ICM and the, you know, we have a lot of folks that are just as acute as, you know, we get folks transferred to us that are still acute, or that we've had, you know, open for years in cycle, and, you know, so whatever. So we have a lot of you know, we have a lot of folks that are coming into contact with the street crisis teams, and don't realize that we're seeing them regularly, you know, and so finally, you know, will contact us, and then I have to be like, look, you know, step back. This is, we're regularly outreaching them, and it's good at that point, but I feel like first I have to push back and like, look, this is happening every single week. We're outreaching them, and we're trying to do this, blah, blah. And then people will be like, okay. And then we can really incorporate people into like, okay, this is, you know, this is how you could support the treatment plan that we've been trying, that's what we've been working towards. And then we can have some pretty good collaboration, but I wish it would happen
Sounds like,
sooner, and definitely not with this initial like, hey,
sounds like some of that
you're
can,
not seeing this person when we are seeing them, sometimes even every day.
Yeah.
So,
There's a continued care from there, right? Versus, you know, you kind of start like from the beginning or from the midpoint or whatever, but there is that continued care when you talk.
it sounds like some of that though can be addressed by training.
Right.
The people on the street teams or whatever, to really understand what the other roles are out there and how they intersect, and, you know, because I've been there. That's a shitty situation where somebody's sort of coming at you with like, I'm going to help this person now, and, you know, what have you done? Without knowing, first off, either what you've done or what you're even responsible for, that might not have done certain things that weren't your job to do. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And just going back to the slides for a second, and I absolutely appreciate that. And again, to say there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of work that has happened. So it's really an opportunity for us to celebrate the accomplishments, and also knowing that this is not a destination, right, that we've reached or will reach. Like, we should always be critically looking at how we enhance our system. I do think that training is a big part of it. And again, the move to Epic will help streamline that a lot. So we'll all be on the same electronic health record. It allows for enhanced communication. It's also been an opportunity for us to really think through complex workflows and how we make things as streamlined as possible for both clients and providers. So that's an exciting opportunity. We're not there yet.
It would be great if as soon as they start picking someone up, I had asked April Sloan about this once and I didn't get a very good answer. Like as soon as you start coming into, and it varies, but I think also I know that there's some people that work at OCC now that used to be our staff. So then they're right away contacting us versus if that, you know, depending, like if it's Avi, she's like, you know, but then other folks don't let us
And we definitely want to hear about that.
later. And well, we would have been so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what we're doing before.
Yeah, please let us know as that's coming up.
And related to that, like we do have a systematic follow-up around the SCRT fire log. Again, not perfect, certainly. So let us know if there's particular challenges. And there's work around multidisciplinary teams and for individuals who are experiencing homelessness, who have behavioral health needs, how we really bring different systems together to partner and making sure that we are working cohesively and holistically and not in silos. Next slide, please. Okay, so moving on to current state. So this is looking, and I should say this is specifically for linkage, stabilization, and intensive case management FTEs. This was a particular focus of the supervisors to look at our higher levels of care. So this does not include outpatient services. But what we have in our system, so across CBOs and Sarah said that for a second, but CBOs and DPH is 221 budgeted FTEs. But the average vacancy rate was 28%. And I should say, you know, this ranged from, 15% all the way up to 45%. So there's a huge range within here. Average is 28. This is something we'll talk a little bit more about. We all know that there's this critical shortage of staff and clinicians in our system. We feel that very acutely in San Francisco. And this is really to put into scale the amount of work that's being done, the amount of clients we're serving, and the workforce that's serving them. And we know that this leads to burnout and the impact. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about some interventions, but this was an opportunity for us to have that conversation with the supervisors about the challenges that we're experiencing. Overall, we serve roughly 3,900 individuals with that staff. And again, I know people in this room know how overwhelmed some of our staff are around this. In terms of client to staff ratio, this varies, of course, from around intensity of services. So for our lower intensity services or outpatient clinics, it's on average 1 to 50. For intensive case management, on average 1 to 17. We know that this is very much impacted by vacancies. So providers frequently have more as they're navigating that. And for linkage and stabilization services, average of 1 to 12.
Question.
Yes.
Couple of questions on the ratios. Are these actual ratios or are these aspirational ratios?
Well, so these are on average. So there's a lot of variability here. I would say, well, and I am even hesitant to say aspirational because this is something that we are also critically looking at, what the most appropriate ratio is. But there's, for example, there could be, some of our programs have had for intensive case management 1 to 17 ratios, but then a staff member leaves, those clients need to be absorbed, and suddenly they have a 1 to 20 caseload.
Secondly, I didn't see in the minutes of the board supervisor committee meeting, any comments or anything that was talking about discussion. Was there discussion by the members of the board on this slide in terms of the ratios?
In terms of ratios that I
Yeah.
remember now.
I don't remember.
Okay. And I guess third question, and this may have occurred and I don't remember, or it may have occurred before I became a member of this committee, but did this committee actually recommend ratios for case management?
The ratios are in the legislation, right?
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
This is the ratio of.
There was a work group, and I think that that particular work group brought up the conundrum that those of us who actually know about these services can't participate in those work groups because it's a conflict of interest. So there was, and there was a work group that met. that put together like a kind of a recommendation, but the recommendation was highly off, I would say, in its recommendations around ratios. It was not useful. It was not useful. So yes, we did meet about case management about 2 years ago. And what came out of it, I don't think was useful.
It was before my time. Okay,
Yes.
because
Before mine too.
because the ordinance specifically
I don't remember that.
required that this body make recommendations
Yeah.
for the ratios.
I see.
And I'm not saying that, I'm not making any qualitative comments about the ratios. I'm just as a process.
I appreciate, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and I think some of this, and Member Salinas, you brought this up, like where people are in our system and making sure people are at the right level of care, and how people flow through our system has been a primary focus, because we see people getting stuck at maybe a level of care that doesn't match what their needs are, and that's something that we need to work towards. So
In both directions.
in both directions, 100%.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not saying, like, I think we should always critically look at this because our population is ever changing. And so we need to look at these ratios. But it may be that if everyone was in the right level of care, these ratios would be fine. But we should always be looking at that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And of course, like the frequency in which we're seeing clients varies depending on what the person's needs are. There is no like magical number of times that we see a clients a week that makes them stable. But it can range in our lower intensity programs bi-weekly, monthly. For our higher intensity programs, it could be once a week, 2, 4 times, or daily, depending on what the client's needs are.
So does a case manager work exclusively in one of the 3 buckets, or do they work with all 3 at the same time?
No, that's a great question. They work exclusively in one of the buckets. And again, that being said, sometimes there is a mismatch of where people are. So sometimes there's certainly some flexibility around that, but the intention is that you are working in one of those buckets.
Actually, we shouldn't call them buckets, but that's okay.
Yes.
That's my fault.
Program types. Program types. Yeah.
Thank you.
Intensive, whatever, yes. Okay.
Mostly though, how variable it is that we meet somebody is how engaged they are. Like if we're not seeing you, doesn't mean that you don't need to be seen every day. It just means we can't find you if you don't come.
Absolutely, both of those things at the time.
Just so that understand why that is that way.
Next slide, please. And while we're waiting for the next slide, I believe this is where I transition to Heather to talk about. Oh, no, not quite. Okay. So case manager location. So our dots are where we have case management clinics. So of course, throughout the city, heavily concentrated in the downtown area, South of Market area, since we know that's where a lot of our clients are. 55% of our case managers are located at civil service clinics. 45% are located at community-based organizations. Next slide. Okay, now I will transition to Heather.
Thank you, Angelica. So we wanted to kind of zoom into the mental health SF case management expansion. Angelica has been presenting the larger world of BHS case management. So this represents the case management expansion that's happened under mental health SF, a lot of it under the planning structure of the Office of Coordinated Care, but the expansion taking place both within the Office of Coordinated Care and within the treatment system of care. So this represents the org structure of Office of Coordinated Care, our triage and care management, our neighborhood-based care, otherwise known as Best Neighborhoods, which is our street engagement team, and then our shelter and permanent supportive housing care coordination teams, as well as our behavioral health access programs. So we've added case management staff via mental health SF to these different teams within the Office of Coordinated Care, and then staff have been added as well to the existing treatment programs, a lot at ICM, but also at the outpatient clinics, both the substance use and mental health outpatient clinics. I should note that the FTEs represented on the right are, those are civil service staff. So what's represented here doesn't take into account, we'll talk about that a little bit later, the contracts that have been added to in the upcoming ICM expansion. But what we've tried to do, I think to an earlier point that was brought up, is where we can expand on the programs and expand on the models that are in existence, rather than office of coordinated care is obviously new, but rather than creating brand new programs otherwise in the treatment system. Okay, next slide, please. And next slide. So there's a question from Board of Supervisors about how case managers get assigned, when is case management offered. So we wanted to show this. It's a very, very high level overview of the flow into our treatment and case management services. So of course we have our access programs, central access programs, our access line and behavioral health access center, where people who are seeking treatment can either walk in or call 24/7. And those programs connect people directly into the treatment case management system of care, depending on the level of acuity or where the person is coming from. They may also route them into our Office of Coordinated Care, care coordination services for additional support to get connected to care. With the development of the Office of Coordinated Care, we also have and are working on centralizing the referrals in and engagement into our treatment and case management services from hospitals, from jail health, from our street teams. We are establishing post 5150 routine follow-up, and then routine follow-up for our street crisis response team. And then our children, youth, and family system is also represented here at the bottom. They have several hubs, so people enter the children, youth, and family system via those hubs as well. But ultimately, the idea is routes lead into ongoing treatment and case management services. I could get the next slide. We also wanted to present some case management scenarios so that the supervisors could get a sense of who we're serving and how we work. So we have 3 scenarios. And I think in the interest of time, I may summarize. All 3 of these scenarios are scenarios in which somebody was experiencing some kind of crisis, either 5150s, PES, street crisis response team contacts, was linked to one of our bridge and engagement services teams, stabilized, and then connected to ongoing care. So we can see that, as well as to housing. Housing is a critical piece of the work that these teams, all teams do. But we can see that teams worked with clients to place them into a shelter and then ultimately connect them to an intensive case management program as a new client. Somebody seen frequently in crisis and really needed a lot of outreach. So our Best Neighborhoods team, which is focused again, out on the street, providing engagement out on the street and outreach out on the street, made frequent outreach attempts and 5150 assessments to ultimately engage, and then was able to engage into one of our stabilization and linkage teams. And then another individual who also needed multiple outreach attempts, was able to obtain a room, was not comfortable in the room, and so the teams worked with them very closely to try to stabilize, engage them, and make sure that they could maintain their housing. And this is an example, I think, Andrea, to your earlier point, where Best Neighborhoods actually worked in conjunction with the ICM program that was in place to stabilize and worked hand in hand, provide support to this person. All right, if I could get the next slide. So we wanted to talk through some of the challenges and limitations that we're seeing with our case management expansion, our case management programs overall. One huge one, I know we've talked about this in here, is recruitment and retention of behavioral health staff and case managers. We know that there's a behavioral health workforce shortage, not just in DPH, not just in San Francisco, really statewide. We know certainly this affects people, contractors, and community-based organizations. But these vacancies, and I think Angelica talked about this, and turnover contribute to high caseloads, also contribute to burnout, and this is among some of the hardest work that people are doing. And so recruitment can be difficult, and with high caseloads come retention difficulties as well. Another particular challenge and limitation that we run into in terms of just coordinating across city and coordinating for individuals who might be getting shared services across departments is data sharing. DPH has limitations on the PHI, that protected health information that we're allowed to share with certain other city agencies. It is something that is being actively kind of worked on and addressed, but that is continues to be a particular limitation in terms of coordination.
Is that being addressed through the rollout of Epic?
That is not, what is, there's a multidisciplinary team structure that Angelica mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the multidisciplinary team, establishing that as a county allows us for individuals who are experiencing homelessness to be able to share obviously the least amount of information, but still to be able to share information we haven't in the past to support stabilization and movement towards placement. And so that can include law enforcement, fire department, other city departments outside of health or health providers. So that's a unique opportunity that we've had.
Can I ask? Oh, sure. So I work in supportive housing, right? And you know, we have a whole system of case managers there. Would they not fit into this somewhere? And maybe you'd want to recognize that and just as they are part of that, you know, not continuing necessarily, but the whole, you know, package. Because some people, they connect with the case management through moving into a certain building or, and there may be other situations like that where it's like the case management is sort of attached to some other program or some, you know. So I just wonder if that might be a bit of a missing piece to this. I think that they're by and large maybe not funded by DPH, and maybe that's why, you know, you didn't have them here. But maybe still, like with the footnote or even a more obvious, like, hey, this is something HSH brings to this, but you should know that just if this presentation is sort of going to be used again, or, you know, doing some of that education with people like the board, they might need to, it might be good for them to understand that that's kind of a whole piece in here as well.
Absolutely. And I think this goes back to what I said earlier in terms, like, you're absolutely right that there's, again, this case management term, like we use so broadly for many different things. And depending on funding, our focus here was really around specialty behavioral health services.
Okay.
And we definitely spoke to like how we do talk about case management in a much larger way.
Yeah.
There's many providers outside of what's here that are providing care coordination system navigation support for individuals.
And I'm moving to be closer to the mic for the record, but Supervisor Ronan has expressed an interest in calling a hearing in the fall on
Housing, yeah, HSH and
HSH
yeah.
collaboration, where I think,
Right.
and I think that seems
Maybe
likely
that's
to happen.
better
We'll
place.
cover this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I get it, because also you're describing like what is case management, and you can't really speak to the other programs out there that do have case managers.
There's so many people doing this work.
But-
I appreciate
But maybe even a little more of the like, here's a few examples of other types of case management that we're not going to cover today or whatever might be helpful, just because I think people get very, you know, reasonably confused by all that. All right, thanks, cool. Do you have?
No, I was pointing to.
Oh, thank you. Support in.
Sally. And then the third challenge limitation, and what we've also talked about in here, are limited housing options, which we know are many minds at work on, and continues to impact individuals who are unhoused, and especially those who are trying to stabilize. Right, if I could get the next slide. So looking forward, some of these we've also talked about, we've gone through the presentation. Major event is Epic going live in April 2024. This is the health system's electronic health record. So we'll just provide a lot more coordination within our health system for behavioral health, and then for physical health workers, health system as well. So this will be a major change for BHS in some really very positive ways. The multidisciplinary teams that Angelica mentioned, MDT, which will help increase collaboration and data sharing across city agencies to make sure that we're coordinating, working with people who are working with multiple city agencies. The SB 1338, which is the Care Courts Act, and I think that has also been discussed in lots of ways, but state mandate to connect people with untreated mental illness with a court-ordered care plan and care team in the community. And then we're adding more staff. So there is an ICM RFP in process that will add some ICM slots and FTEs. There is new grant funding added to our shelter behavioral health care coordination team for care coordination at the shelter navigation centers, and then an RFP to be published soon to expand behavioral health services for our permanent housing advanced clinical services team, which provides care coordination, physical health and behavioral health care coordination in the permanent supportive housing sites. One additional item not on here that we should mention are 2 assembly bills related to post 5150, post involuntary hold follow-up. So one is what's called a model care coordination plan, the standardizing care coordination for people coming out of the hospital after an involuntary hold, and then another that will create some more standards around data for people who have been
Standardizing across the state?
Yes.
I assume? Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you.
And I think that is it for us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
both.
for-
Just wanted to note that Heather and Angelica are both have a hard stop at 11 o'clock, which is 8 minutes away to do some EPIC training, very important, or related to EPIC. So we have, for the group, we have about 8 minutes with them, and then they'll depart and we'll do public comment.
Oh, go.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
There'll be a part 2 to this
Many parts.
for the
board.
committee.
Yeah.
Committee after us.
Yeah, so for the committees there, and I don't think this is set yet unless I'm just not recalling, very possible. But there's going to be a hearing around our system of care, so zooming out more, so looking at our system of care. And then they will also, when they get back from research, be calling a hearing around HSH collaboration and resources in partnership with DPH. But I think Valerie is going to correct me.
Well, so they, this one, they continue to the call of chair, which is a motion they can make. It allows them to resume hearing proceedings on this topic at any time without reintroduction. So they may bring up a second on this anytime they want without sort of starting it over. So there could be, they do that when they think they might want to do a part 2. So we haven't heard more on that from them yet, but all we have that we know for sure is moving forward right now is system of care hearing and care court. But they'll resume session in a few weeks and probably start introducing new topics. So yeah.
Will you guys put it out on our list?
Yeah, sorry, sit on Angelica. Yeah, I think we strive with our harder colleagues to meet the balance of not spamming you guys, but we can try to aggregate messages and send it.
So actually, oh, sorry, I did want to raise that. I happen to have found out about the hearing other ways, but it seems really appropriate that as members of this group, we would have been notified by the staff, DPH or HART or whatever, that this was happening, because I think it was so relevant. And so at the time, I remember being a bit frustrated and a little befuddled, why didn't they mention this to us? So I think, of course, use your judgment about not, getting towards spamming us. And I appreciate your not wanting to do that. But there's certain things like this I think are important for us to get, because I had to scramble to watch.
Be there, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important feedback. I think, so we, Chair Lasser's request previously had created designated sort of placeholder in Dr. Cunnen's update to regularly mention upcoming hearings. I think with the failure to meet quorum in June and the and July, that's probably where that fell off. So, because I know we had mentioned that it was coming, but it was not scheduled yet.
Okay.
So, and so I think,
Emails work.
so we can, and that's fair feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that the care court is scheduled, right? The hearing on
Oh, yeah, September 29th.
September 29th.
I should know the
But
answer.
I think this is.
Yeah, you said September 29th.
System of care is not yet.
No, like,
September so far away. I know.
so
A long way to get there.
It's not snow, right?
Alcor wants a puppy pic, if you don't mind, you just text me.
Oh, will do. Yeah.
I hope the kids are well too.
Thank you. Thank you. I now have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old that just started kindergarten. So
It's been a year already?
it's been a year.
Okay. So that's is not a puppy anymore either then?
No, Dodger is not a puppy anymore. He vacillates from being a puppy, acting like a puppy to acting like an old scrumpy man. So
Well, then Alcor will like,
same, so
Alcor will like him even more then.
perfect.
All right, so any more questions or comments from the IWG? And if not, we'll go to public comment for item number 3.
We got one.
Sorry, Steve, did you say that you had one or? Okay. So now we're going to public comment for the case management hearing recap. So again, members of the public can comment in 3 ways. First is in person. And for those who are joining online, you can raise your hand if you're joining through the web. If you have called in, please press pound and then pound again. And then *3 to virtually raise your hand, and we will unmute you when it is your turn. Each public speaker will have 2 minutes to talk, and I will give you like a 30-second warning when you are done. I believe you would.
Okay. Again, I don't know if this isn't so relevant to case management, but member Wong mentioned a list of programs that had been created. Wondering if we can have a,
it's fine treatment.
okay, well, but there's actually already a mental health provider directory through the San Francisco Health Network that is like exactly the type of thing that we should have. And in order to not create a dual mental health system, which is kind of what was my concern at the conception of this whole thing, is there any way that we could kind of fold in the programs from here and the one existing? Because it's a really nice directory. I mean, it's like 145 pages of current things. It was put together in 2021 through the San Francisco Health Network. So I'm just hoping that we can do that rather than having this big divide in, what's already out there and the new stuff, because that's part of the reason that we really wanted to have this in the first place, was that there were all these siloed programs that nobody knew about and couldn't communicate. But if it could all be in one place, that would be awesome. Plus, it's already there. The template's there. I don't know if that helps, but I would love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online with a raised hand? Let me refresh this. I don't see any raised hands. Kimmy or Jen, do you see any online folks with raised hands? Okay, then I believe public comment is closed.
Okay, great. Thank you. So members of the IWG, I think we'll take a 10-minute break. Let's return here at 11:10 according to not that. According to your phones. So we'll reconvene at 10.
It is actually on the IWG.
It's on, okay.
Yeah, and it, or see the blur, and that's what I've been asking.
Yeah.
See, but
Like, I don't even.
that is what they, you can imagine that they are doing all these, or maybe.
Showing us.
And, if they can innovate, they would have the more. And just, for outreach, people who are out in the, meeting. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Okay.
To the bathroom?
I'll let you guys in. Okay.
And anything for this meeting?
Uh,
Are you guys gonna vote on the thing that?
they usually have an agenda online. I don't know that they always put it, through the paper copies. What did
The
you
next
ask?
thing we'll do is the rest.
There's the upcoming meetings, the agenda's online.
Yes, but I was saying that,
I came
you know,
from home.
oh, I see. We could maybe print you out one if you wanted, but you had, what was your question?
She has one, but I think it's just too small. Like, you know, they put the three
Yeah, I
sides.
know. Oh, your question was,
Well, last meeting.
oh, you were gonna vote
They
on,
were gonna vote on, having the, being more recognized, it had to be more recognized by the,
oh, about the quorum thing?
I remember they were working on that. I think she's talking about working on the language and submitting it. Is there that one? Is that the one you're talking about?
Didn't want to do it because.
Yeah.
because they didn't want to piss anybody off or something.
Yeah, I that was from I believe that was from the June meeting or May
Yeah.
meeting. We kind of left it up in the air and they were gonna go work on it.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I don't know
Because
the answer.
Honestly, I don't, you have to have a quorum to vote, but you don't have to vote in a quorum. I don't understand. I don't even understand why that didn't. But I was just wondering if you were gonna revisit that today. And it seems like, there's too much that happens before you guys hear about it.
Yes, I agree.
And it's like, it's so crazy. San Francisco is so great at starting new programs. I mean, brilliant, groundbreaking programs, but they're completely not supporting them. So. Create some long-term support programs.
Yeah,
The ones that are.
that's why we're here, is hoping to make that happen.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Kenneth left.
I think she's coming back. So I'm not sure. You good, Falcor? You don't need a break? Just so you know, I feel a little, I don't know what the, rules are, but I feel a little wary of talking about group business during our,
Oh, no, I
With
just
you,
wondered, was
'cause I don't
wondering
know.
if it was gonna come up
oh, totally.
in this.
No,
Today.
I've got no problem with you asking, just saying why I'm
No, no.
also like, I don't know if I'm supposed to, what we're supposed to talk about.
No, I didn't get a chance to,
Use the restroom.
Yeah, but that way, if you wait, you get a little break,
Yeah.
It'll.
Guess I should move so you can spread back out. Now there's all that space over there. But there's no we have no more presenters. So.
Well, how long are you here for? Because I thought you would be gone. Oh, you said you would be here till they find a replacement. Now I remember that. Well, I'm happy,
2025?
Actually, I have an idea I should talk to you about. I am happy that you're still here. However, happy to see you.
Is that person actually doing like sound
So it was,
Jen, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Can you remind us how to get to that directory that we were talking about before on the IWG
Sure.
website?
Yep. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen.
Awesome. Hi, Jen.
Hi. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
And I think what Valerie mentioned was the findtreatmentsf.org.
Okay, let's see. Screen.
Yeah, I went to that
Oh,
website too. And it,
Kaylee, can you stop sharing? Oh, once I'm going to share and then you're going to go off. Okay, got it. Okay. So do you see the Mental Health San Francisco Implementation Working Group website?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the home page when you go to your website.
Uh-huh.
And if you go down, like here's all of our meeting information.
Yep.
If you go down to resources, which is right here, and you click
Yes.
into that,
Uh-huh.
the first part is all of the recommendations and reports that you have done.
Uh-huh.
But the second part are other related resources. So in
Right.
here, you can see there's things like here's the BHS provider directory, the finding available
yeah, that's the one.
beds.
That's the one? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and like earlier
Okay.
during the meeting, we talked about the residential treatment dashboard. That's right here. So you have all of these are here for you to look at
Perfect. Okay.
and click into. Yeah. And these are linked to like there's residential treatment capacity. Like this was updated in August 8th. So you can see whatever updates DPH does, we've linked to those so that you can get to them.
How'd you get to you click? Can you go back and show me which? So you went
Sure.
to the provider
Okay, so
directory.
yeah, so I'm here under those other related resources, and then I went down and I went to the residential program
Okay, I went to
description
a different one.
capacity.
Okay.
And that,
Okay.
yeah, and that passes you over to the actual site that DPH maintains, and you can see here
Okay.
with
Well, I
August
clicked on a
8th.
different one.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
All right, we're back from break. So we are going to move to discussion item number 4, which is resolutions related to the street crisis response.
Chair Hammer, could we go back and take care of the 2 operational things that we have? We didn't take, we need to vote on
You can go back to
attendance
this.
and the minutes.
So attendance, Kaylee, is on slide 3.
Is that all right, Chair Hammer?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And then that's you, Diana.
Yes, so we already took attendance and attendance have not changed since we have taken attendance. And I read the thing about well, I could do this again. So the IWG must vote to excuse an absent member from a working group meeting. If the working group does not take such a vote at a meeting or a previous meeting, then the minutes shall note that the absence is unexcused. Any member who misses 3 regular meetings of the working group within a 12-month period without the expressed approval of the working group at or before each missed meeting will be deemed to have resigned from the working group 10 days after the 3rd unapproved absence. So member Fields did submit a request for an excused absence. Members Lassar and Patterson are also absent.
Member Lassar resigned.
Yeah.
No, we have not received her letter of resignation.
So she's technically still a member right now.
Okay.
And for,
Did you know that? She's been.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe there was.
Okay.
is Valerie in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was trying to eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we leave it up to you guys. All we can tell you is, she expressed her intention to resign. She has not submitted a letter of resignation. She has not responded to further attempts to reach her. So, because her term is still active and she's not termed out, she remains both as chair officially and a member until, she changes that or is voted unexcused for 3 meetings, or get it out. So those are, I leave it up to you to discuss, but that is.
So for the 3 people who are absent, do we need to vote separately on each of the 3?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Move to excuse Director Fields or member
Member
Fields.
Fields.
I second.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll now do roll call to excuse member Fields. So member Gonzalez,
Yes.
Member Hammer.
Yes.
Salinas is not,
She's here. She moved.
There was so much.
You must have not gotten the forwarding address.
I think I needed to be crowded, Kelly.
Member Lipton,
Yes.
Member McGuigan,
Yes.
Member Salinas, who has moved up here.
I concur.
Okay, Member Short
yes.
and Member Wong. Okay, so we have 7 yeses and 0 nos to excuse Member Fields.
Thank you. And Kaylee, did you get the first and the move and the second? Who moved and who seconded?
It was,
I moved.
I seconded.
So it was Lipton moved and Short seconded.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a hard word to say. Okay, so now I believe, and I'm looking to somebody to make sure this is right, that we are voting whether or not to excuse Chair Lassar. So that's
Okay.
what we're doing now.
yeah, you vote yes or no.
You vote yes or no to excuse Member Lassar.
Is there
Um,
any, and is there any discussion before we move to a vote?
Do we get
Yeah. Same
a,
question.
you know, message? Sometimes it's so hard to contact or connect with. I just want to be fair.
I think she's done.
Did she offer any, yeah, I'm not gonna make it or anything like that, the way Steve, did? Okay. No checking in. So I suppose the policy is that you're supposed to check, request approval or, right?
Yes, yes.
So I suppose it would be unexcused if we're playing by the book. If we had a reason to think, that's what I was asking about, did she
Yeah.
understand?
Right.
You know, so if we had a reason to think there's some
Something
extenuating
happened.
circumstances, but we don't.
So I think it's actually not a motion. I think we just go around and say yes or no.
Okay.
So are we voting? So I just want to make sure that we're all clear on what you're all voting on. I think you are voting on whether or not to excuse Chair Lassar. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you say yes, that means you're excusing her. If you say no, that means you're not. Okay,
Okay.
got it. Member Gonzalez. Member Hammer.
No.
Member Lipton. Member McGuigan.
No.
Member Salinas.
No.
Member Short.
No.
Member Wong.
No.
So we have 0 yeses and 7 noes. So we have a majority vote to not excuse the absence for
Okay.
Chair Lassar.
Thank you. And then the last one is for Member Patterson. A note about Member Patterson is this would be his 3rd unexcused absence in 12 months. So I want to make sure that are there any questions or discussions? Because this will mean that like if as unexcused, he will no longer be a member of this group.
We heard
Today.
anything from Member Patterson to the effect of intending to continue to be on the IWG or not intending?
We
to be
did
on
receive notice that he was planning to attend today. Yeah, and we contacted him during the meeting and we haven't received any response.
Can we defer this to the next meeting and in the interim, have a communication go to Member Patterson? That we deferred this?
I'm not sure I support that. I don't know how much that matters, but how this works. Because I feel like we really want an active person in that seat. It's important. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Well, he was here the last.
Yeah.
He was
I
not,
don't
he
think he was.
was not here at the main meeting.
It's been a very long
No.
time, I feel like.
He said.
He wasn't here in June. I know. That was.
No, he was here in, I think, April, our first meeting back that we had in City Hall.
April, he was
Margaret.
here. May, he was unexcused. June, we recessed.
Anyway, I sort of feel like I'd like to get a more engaged member in that slot if he's really not able or wanting to do it. I wonder, here's a question, if this is his 3rd and that, you know, this was off the committee, would he be able to apply in that slot if he, you know, really wanted to? Yeah. And maybe that's the way he could show his commitment too. But I'm not sure. I mean, I think you're probably thinking, well, maybe if we get a chance to talk to him, there'll be some, like I said, extenuating circumstances that he'll raise. But I feel like there's been enough opportunity for him to do that. So
I want to just press about that. We've had our other, I guess it's the consumer.
It's the seat number
lived experience.
Lived experience. The lived experience seat has been vacant for an extent. I mean, that person only served 6 months.
Us joining.
Yeah. That person literally only served 6 months. That was it. And we haven't been able to find now, it's been what, how many years? Since he left in June, I think, his last session, his last meeting was
2 years.
May of 2020. So it's been.
You're right, and not having him there is not necessarily a block to getting a new person on, and also might
If we,
mean that we immediately get a new person to fill his seat. Is that what you're?
I mean, I'm saying we haven't been able to fill the other person with it lived experience slot in over 3 years. And now we'll have no, you know, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that then we'd have nobody on with lived experience.
We already do, is my feeling, is the thing. And we have more of a chance of getting somebody maybe with, but you know what? It's not like a
But if you
big old
find somebody,
deal for me.
there's another slot for that person.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a big old deal. So if you do want to defer, I'm
So
can live
I'm
with
gonna,
that.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
recommend that, given that he did express intention to come to this meeting, that we defer the vote on to excuse or not to excuse, because it's such a critical vote in terms of his membership. And just make sure that we let him know that it would be the third unexcused absence if it was unexcused, and that then he would by per the bylaws lose his seat. So I'm just going to propose that we do that. I think that is a motion. So
I second, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on to defer
yeah,
the vote on.
I don't know where's this discussion lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just say though, is there somebody who's maybe, this was sort of contingent on, okay, we'll have that more time so we can have a conversation with him. So is there somebody who's willing to reach out or who would be doing that? Would it be a staff or one of us?
Valerie, is that appropriate for us or for you, or who is the?
We've been doing, it'll either be unless an IWG member would like to do a personal reach out to Member Patterson, is that we would probably do it, or Valerie, we would talk about like who's most appropriate. But does an IWG member, does someone there at the table, would they like to do a personal reach out?
I think we would have been fair. Yeah. Oh.
Great, I think that would be better.
I'll do it for reach out. Jen, if you send me his email, actually not a phone, then
Okay.
I will do a reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we make I mean, I don't know if this is a thing that we can do, like a recommendation to like how, like really do real targeted outreach and recruitment for this, with this
Yeah.
very hard to fill position?
I'm trying
One board and one mayor.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on somebody, and I had some engagement with them and was going to meet for coffee before I left for Ireland, and I have picked that conversation back up. So I have I think somebody that'd be great for it, and so I am trying to work on that for the lived experience spot.
That's one of two.
Can we just interrupt for informational purposes? And I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation. I was saving this for membership. We do have quite a number of lived experience applications on file.
Oh, dude.
By recently expanding inquiries, I've gotten quite a bit more. We are going to go through them and like talk to folks. See if it's a good fit.
So I'll try and get a response from Member Patterson before we do that. So
Yeah,
it's if we're talking one or two.
yeah, good idea.
Great.
Other discussion before the vote to defer the vote on Member Patterson?
Just my opinion that if we do have a pipeline of good people, then or people that are interested, then I think that could definitely sway my vote in a different manner. Because kind of like keeping them on, there's nothing to lose. But if we do have a pipeline of people, then I'd rather get somebody on that's going to be willing to be here once a month. And obviously everybody can't make it all the time, and that's fine. But I mean, I think 3 is starting to see a pattern, but anyways.
Valerie, I think you mentioned at a previous meeting that you had a pipeline before, if I recall, this was discussed. But there's been no appointments and not coming from the mayor's office, not coming from the board. Given the process, what would be the earliest likelihood that the mayor or, I realize you don't control the board. I realize you don't control the mayor's office.
Do not.
But I know you'd like to, you know. But I mean, seriously, just in terms of processes to do something, how long would it be before someone was actually be appointed?
And yeah, sorry, some of this we were saving for memberships. We'll just defer that at this time. They're on recess. The understanding I have is that the rules committee of the board tries to batch all the applications for a committee and process them at the same time, because then it's a single hearing and not process them piecemeal. So part of the delay is we need to line up enough to be able to allow them to go forward and get a hearing. So we can talk, should we just cover membership?
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. So we have gotten quite a bit more applications in recent weeks by accepting inquiries. I will say most of them are lived experience and don't adequately address all of the other vacancies that we have. So we need to press to within our networks to get applications for the other vacancies that we expect to have. We need to address whatever you guys would like to choose for Chair Lasser's seat, et cetera. I think to line up as many of them as we can. And then our hope is that we would get a hearing introduced in September to process all those applications. So I am going to ask our government affairs team to try to introduce that as soon as they come back and organize that so that they can have that hearing be a couple weeks in September. That said, if we don't have enough applications, my recommendation is going to be that we process 4 business we can move forward with now and beg their forgiveness to try to get a second hearing. So,
And slide, it's like 56, no, slide something, I can't see. Shows which of the seats are open, if anybody wants.
That is, Haley, could you go to slide, 56?
Getting close.
There.
There we go.
It's as if it's a board or a mayor.
So 2 and 3, I think we have, I have to vet folks and speak with folks, make sure it's a good fit for them. They understand the obligations, but seats 2 and 3, we have a number of applications for. I do not have applications for 5 or 8 or 9.
What about 7?
7, you had just the one?
Yeah.
So we don't have anybody for you. Option now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 5 was the one that Victor was in. And 8
Was
and
8.
and 8 and 9, they've been open, or it helps me to think who was in that seat.
That was, what was the guy's name?
Oh, Dr. Riot.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Which one, 9?
8?
Was 9. He was 9.
Then did we never have an 8?
8 is Chair Lasar's spot. It's listed as open here because it's a little bit
That
in
was Chair Lasar. Okay,
flux,
so
yeah.
Victor, Meek, and then, okay, Riot, okay.
I want to ask a procedural question that probably, I think I know the answer. Like, we can't switch, I mean, because like Steve Fields has this seat that's a pretty wide swath. I mean, people can't move seats, like he can't move to 9 because that's what he does. for instance, and then it would open, it seems like it would be easier to fill seat 6 than seat 9, because
I think the other hard one is he was appointed by the board and seat 9 is a mayor's.
Mm.
It is an
Oh, that's
interesting
right.
question.
It's in
I have no idea. I think it would require resigning probably and reapplying. That's an interesting question.
Well, seat number 5, I mean, I'd be really interested in filling that position, but I'm gonna be retiring at the end of the year, but I would be glad to stay on. Do that. I mean, I have the experience.
So you should find out from Valerie the application procedure.
And is that supposed to be an individual who, works for a treatment provider, or is that supposed to actually apply to more like representing an agency?
I think the word
That's-
provider is
You know what I mean?
broadly
It could be
defined.
either. Okay,
It can be somebody who works for a provider.
that's what I was trying to get at, is it?
It
supposed to
doesn't
be like-
say licensed the way some of the other, or the way CDS does, so I don't think they have to be the licensed provider, but they can be.
Right, but do they have to represent like an agency that's a provider, or can it be someone who
It's not specified in the ordinance. I
has
think
been a staff providing treatment to people? Yeah.
the goals committee is, when they hold a hearing, it's to assess qualifications for the seat. And I think what they're driving at probably ties to like the intention that Supervisor Ronan had for the IWG and the legislation, which was to be able to fill it with folks who have experience that would position them to actually be able to advise us on like program implementation and design and things like that. And so I think it depends on what role that person has played in those organizations before that, but that's probably the kind of questions they would ask is it somebody who has that level of experience to be able to actually form discussions?
in the public health sphere. Yeah.
Okay, so
Right, one more question. If we know of someone, is there like a process?
Yeah,
Just tell you, okay.
if you know of somebody, you tell me and I'll get the process going.
Does it have to be someone who's actively working? Could it be someone who worked in the system, is retired?
I think the actively working are the 10 and 12 seats, right? We have to be
Oh, that's
currently
us.
a default.
So the other
employee.
seats do not have to be?
No, I don't think so. You could be retired but have this experience.
Oh.
I would guess
You
that
could be in between jobs.
how recently you were like engaged.
Yeah, more about the experience, I think. Skill set,
Good to know.
and subject expertise and all that.
Okay, so we are back to Member Patterson and the vote on to defer or to not defer. So let's go for a roll call vote, please. The motion on the table, which I made and Member Short seconded, is that we will defer that vote until next meeting.
Got it. Thank you. So voting to defer, yes is you vote to defer, no is you do not vote to defer. Member Gonzalez.
Oh, defer?
It's done.
Defer? Yes.
Okay, so that's a yes. Okay. Member Hammer.
Defer.
Member Lifton.
Defer.
Member McGuigan.
Defer.
Member Salinas. Member Short. Member Wong. Okay, so we have 7 yeses and 0 nos. So we have a majority vote to defer the vote on Member Patterson's excuse or not.
And just to note, Valerie, for this slide, C12, that it, like all the other ones, it doesn't show the description seat. It just
Oh,
has
right.
my title.
Fair.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's always gonna be you.
Ever and ever.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the meeting minutes.
Yes, which
So let's go. Sorry, Haley, to have to make you go
slide 6, Haley, please.
backwards. And we're gonna move to discussion 1, approval of the May 2023 IWG meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the meeting minutes or discussion about the meeting minutes while we wait? Oh, yeah. Member Lip.
I've discussed this with Chair, the interim chair, I've discussed this with Jen and also with Valerie. I'm maybe old school when it comes to minutes, but I do not believe minutes should reflect the discussion, the actual discussion by members of the committee. That is, you show on the minutes the items that came up for discussion. If there was a presentation, the presentation, and then you have, for deliberation, you show the vote, but you don't necessarily detail the individual discussion by each member and the back and forth. They're like 4 pages alone on the resolutions regarding the crisis team and material changes resolutions. And I think I would like to see the minutes redone to eliminate all the references to the discussion, going member by member by member. It's all in, if someone wants to hear, listen to the tape, let them listen to the tape. But I don't believe it belongs in the minutes. And I think if you look at minutes of other city boards and so forth, you don't see this kind of detail.
It's more of a transcription.
Yeah, it's more of transcription. So I would like to have the minutes redone. But I'll,
Discussion or?
So, member Salinas and member Short.
Raised
Okay.
her hand, so you can.
Yeah, go ahead, member.
Just sort of clarification, because I feel like it would be sort of odd to do that with just one.
Right.
And so
Been like that.
maybe it needs
That's
to
fine.
be motion, moving forward as well. Or, and then the question is, or even backwards, so we want to bother, but I think it just should be consistent. I don't have a problem with your proposal at all. I think that makes sense, but
I want to make a distinction. Like, for example, there are several items where there's a presentation and then there's a question asked by a member of the committee. I think that's more fair game to put in the minutes because that may be eliciting information. I think it's different when you're discussing something that is actually coming up for a vote and where we're actually deliberating on a particular action as opposed to responding to a presentation.
yeah, I agree that's not necessary to be there, but I also agree that makes it a little harder for the note taker to, we'd have to sort of maybe train or whatever based on how they discern what should be recorded and what shouldn't. Which I think can be done, but we just have to be willing to do that and follow up on that. So I don't want to put them in a hard position. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, as long as it's not just well, for this one meeting, we want to do the minutes this way. I think that would be funky.
That's fine.
So that's those are my feelings. Andrea.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, I would appreciate some content. It just, I might not be on this for long, and I've tried to make I have made every one, but I just think about like having to watch the whole thing to know what happened. It's nice to have in the minutes so that you can get, in 10 minutes or less what happened rather than watching a 4-hour meeting. And that's tremendous. Because sometimes I go back to remember like what happened, and I could not tolerate having to zip through a video. And so that's been very helpful. I definitely, of the notes I have definitely used them to refer back to, and that's been so helpful. So
and
read about the change.
The minutes have been in this format since the beginning. I know because I usually go through and see, am I being quoted right, basically, because it is a transcript. So this would be Member Lipton making a motion to have the minutes be more like traditional minutes where it's a summary of the discussion and not a transcription. Sounds like you would be okay with that going forward, not going back even just to the last meeting. And then it would be a change because for those of us who want to look back and see the nature of the discussion, then we wouldn't have that. Or really like how the discussion went. So any other discussion on this before we ask for a motion and then we can vote on the motion? Yeah.
I kind of like this because I don't have time to go back and listen. And then this kind of has, oh yeah, right. I remember she said this. Oh yeah, I remember I said that. I mean, to me, I know it can be tedious and it just kind of like cumbersome. You know, we talk and it's, we play, but I find it helpful.
I guess it's that learning style thing, because I'm like, seeing all that on a page, opposite makes me go, I just want to cut to the chase, but if I really want to know a detail or, a video works a lot better for me. So I guess it's just, one of those things.
But it sounds like Member Lipton, you were also expressing, is it a good use of time for the minute taker to be transcribing
There's also that.
an hour-long discussion, 4 pages of.
Like how onerous, who's been taking minutes and how onerous is it?
Haley.
Interview the
Dozen minutes.
Thank you.
can we have a quick interview with the,
Haley's on the
Valerie?
phone. She takes the minutes.
Thank you, Kaylee. I just wanted to offer what I offered to before the meeting, which is that I'm happy to follow up after this meeting with the city's good governance guide and with the city attorney, just to confirm what is required of us, what's best practices for meeting minutes, and share that information with the group.
so can we modify this, motion
We
and?
don't have a motion yet, I don't think, right? Did you make?
Yeah, I remember seconding it.
Okay.
To have it, whatever, be deferred until after that conversation with the city folks.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. So now we have the minutes from the May 23 meeting, and is there a motion to approve the minutes as written? I mean, any correction to? Second, all right.
Andrea moved and we can second it.
Any discussion?
Diana, could you repeat that?
Salinas and then McWegan.
Thank you.
And then, Diana, you want to do the public comment?
You. So now members of the public could provide public comment on the May meeting minutes. I'll first call on the people in person and then those joining via video or phone. If you're joining via video, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you when it is your turn. If you are joining via phone, you press pound and then pound again, and then *3 to line up to speak. And again, we will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. All speakers will have 2 minutes to give comments, and I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is nearing completion. Anybody in person who would like to give public comment? No in-person folks. Anybody online with their hand raised? Let me refresh this. I do not see any hands raised. Jen or Kaylee, do either of you see raised hands? Okay, then I think we can close public comment.
Public comment is now closed, so we'll have a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay. Voting to approve the May minutes, members.
Question before we vote. Do we need 7 affirmative votes to approve? Or do we need a quorum? I'm not prepared to vote
It
yes.
says simple
On the
majority
minutes.
by roll
And so
call.
I don't want to,
So that sounds like we don't need we need majorities.
The bylaws for, this would be considered just a procedure and not an action. So for procedural, you do not need 7 affirmative.
Oh, exactly.
Simple majority of the people at the meeting. Okay. Right.
Okay. Member Gonzalez. Yes. Member Hammer.
Yes.
Member Lipton.
abstain.
Member McGuigan.
Yes.
Member Salinas.
Yes.
Member Short. Member Wong. Yes. So we have 6 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 abstention. So a majority has voted to approve the May 2023 meeting minutes.
Now we will move to discussion item number 4. Kaylee, that's slide
Member Hammer?
46.
Chair Hammer, just a quick note of a notice to the members. So because this is deferring, your meeting notes for this meeting are going to look like the past meeting notes. So the meeting minutes are going to look the same until there is a change, because that's been what we've been doing. So just wanted to prepare people for that, is that you will see the minutes will look the same as they did for the minutes you just approved.
And then Valerie will get back to us next meeting about the format. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, Kaylee.
And then, well, and then the
No
my
worries.
understanding is the conversation will be, then this is what the lawyers say are the minimum or the requirements that we should have. And then you as a group can decide what level of notes are helpful to you.
We're moving to discussion item number 4, resolutions related to the street crisis response team.
Although, I just want to check, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I noticed Dr. Cummins was back, so I didn't know if we were finishing up that.
Should just sit at the table. So we wanted, Dr. Cummins and I wanted to both be here to be able to discuss some of the governance. We had talked, had a couple of discussion items we wanted to raise about the presentation updates.
Wait, we haven't. Oh, so we're going to skip to governance and then come back to, I got it.
Yeah, if that
Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, I thought that,
Okay.
I didn't know about that item, but yes, I thought there was something,
Okay, so it wasn't about the director's report, it was.
no,
Yeah.
something that she had needed.
Okay.
But here, that's slide 52.
Hey. Right, let me,
Ready to get approved for.
discussion item number 5, update on IWG governance. And then next slide, these are our governance items. We already talked about membership and we want to add location. Okay. Okay.
I'm taking the.
Know your own strength.
Wait, so membership, that's what we mentioned,
Is that?
Okay. So we are without a vice chair and a chair, and our chair has expressed the intention to resign, but has not done so yet. We'd like to discuss how to move forward. We can continue to have volunteers to serve as chair indefinitely to run meetings, but should consider asking those who do so to also be available to respond to media requests or weigh in on planning the meeting agenda in between meetings. These tasks are outlined for the chair in the bylaws. If one of you is willing to put yourself forward to be voted on for the vice chair, you would serve as acting chair until we officially have a vacant chair and can elect a new one. Anybody interested in volunteering to serve as vice chair?
and we would not have any idea of how long this would be, this interim role, right?
Well, you'd be vice chair
Oh, that would be
permanently,
actually,
but you'd be stepping into the chair role until we have a new chair or until Chair Lissar returns.
So I guess someone could volunteer to be vice chair and then step down at any point. It's,
Sure.
there's not a mandatory
yeah.
tenure, right?
Yeah.
Any volunteers?
So let's discuss the alternative. We don't have anyone step up for that. Then what happens? It used to be just sort of like who's going to facilitate each meeting.
Rotating chairs.
Yeah.
And then, and if we were going to do that into perpetuity, then we would need bylaws change.
Right.
But then we'd also every time we need somebody to talk to the media, and we'd have to send out and ask. And then also we wouldn't have anybody identified to work with the DPH staff harder on the agenda planning.
Right. So we as a body would have less ability to participate in like putting together the meeting agendas and things like that. So that would be, I think, a loss for us.
Yeah, I do too.
But otherwise, otherwise the sort of facilitation part could be somewhat easily rotated, except we found that nobody steps up to do it except for Hallie. So I don't know that that's.
Yeah, and I will just say, the team does an amazing job of giving guidance. Like this is not a burden
Yeah.
to me. I mean, it doesn't mean I just like, attention stuff. So I just have to, attend to it. But it's not a big deal. It's really the like Member Short said, without a standing chair, then, or vice chair in acting as chair, we don't have somebody from the group planning the agendas.
Right. And just to get a
Speaking for the
sense,
group.
have we had a lot of media requests that our chair has had to field in general? Like,
don't
it'd be
think there's
interesting to know
been-
how often that's a thing, you know?
Several of us are shaking our heads, but I'm aware, I can think of like one but I don't, and Chair Lasser would typically call, I think out of courtesy, call us to let us know. I don't think it's been a lot.
I would add that there are other things such as, if the SCRT resolution were to pass or something, elevating that or something that typically would be distributed like on behalf of the chair or something like that. So without a chair, there isn't like a person.
Right.
Things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So there's the annual reports. I feel like that probably were some work, the annual reports that Dr. Lasar, that was, and I think there was a presentation to at least some committee, right, on the annual report.
maybe on earlier ones, not in the past years. She did attend our planning meetings for this meeting. We have those weekly. She attended not all of them, but a number of them and would weigh in on content. So.
Now, sorry if I missed this. Can this be like an interim chair position? Is that what we're talking about? Or is it, as we discussed, vice chair, sort of sign up to be chair? And if you so decide when someone else comes in or, that you want to step down to make room for someone else.
Seems like we could nominate and vote on an interim.
Yeah, okay, because I think that definitely needs to.
If it feels like stepping up to be vice chair is more of a commitment. I think we could nominate somebody to be interim chair.
Looking at Falcor. Here, he keeps looking away.
Yeah.
Nominate somebody to be interim vice chair, which raises less of a conflict with the fact that he's.
One other point of clarification, I just went back to the bylaws and just like the term of each officer, our bylaws say the term of each officer, chair and vice chair, expires at the start of the working group's first regular meeting each January. So technically it's supposed to expire at the, and then they can re-up or not. So we did that first, we hadn't been doing that. We did that first, or, like who's going to have those positions in January, and we've been on that path since then, is that we have not had a vice chair since then.
So anybody who volunteers to step into those positions right now, we would have to do the re-up in January. So it'd only be for the September, October, November, December.
Yes, yeah. And they can always continue if they want to, but it's just
Now
right
that
now.
is-
Yeah.
That is a good point, though, how could someone become interim chair right now if Monique isn't officially off? So did somebody already say something around that? And whether that could or would work or anything?
I don't think
it's
we
probably
can do that.
It's probably acting, right? So it's probably acting.
Okay.
Acting, you don't have to have a
Yeah.
formal resignation of the person. So you're
Well,
just acting.
And I don't even know, I mean, one way to handle this is, which is the way we develop the slides, is identifying the vice chair is the role of the vice chair, is the vice chair can step in and play chair responsibilities. And so this identifying vice chair actually takes the place of that interim.
Okay,
So
so
if
really
we have,
we're looking for a vice chair.
we're looking for a vice chair, we're looking for 4 months. And then we'll figure out the chair as we, as this goes along. And in January, you can either continue or we will have this discussion again in January.
Is the other option still on the table of rotating?
Well, rotating, but that leaves us without somebody to do menu planning. Agenda.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And representing the group in the
Right.
media increase.
Like a game of chicken. Sorry.
Member Salinas, would you like to nominate somebody?
I think that you would make a good vice chair, Sarah Short. It's only till January. It's an interim vice chair.
Do you want to make a motion to nominate Member Short to be vice chair?
I don't know. She's my neighbor. I need her. She's now.
Another year?
I need to stuff my counsel over there. Yeah, okay.
Council getting a suntan.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. I second the motion.
Quick
Okay, let's
vote.
vote.
Yeah, before she did.
Exactly.
That was Hammer who motioned and seconded it. So now we will vote on Member Short being, let me get this right, vice chair.
Vice chair.
Okay. So Member Gonzalez.
Member
Oh,
Gonzalez.
sorry.
Hopping it.
Yes, okay. Member Hammer,
Yes.
Member Lipton,
Yes.
Member McGuigan.
Yes.
Member Salinas.
Yes.
Does Member Short get to vote on it?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Member Wong.
Yes.
So we have 7 yeses and 0 nos. So Member Short is now the vice chair.
Okay, Sarah, so we're going to
Is
set
six
you up
months
for
now?
20
No, it's
meetings in this last
Okay,
month.
Just want to know when I get my bites
February.
and which one it will be.
Okay, so now we're gonna go on to membership. I think we've discussed membership, right? So then we'll move on to going to talk about presentation and meeting structure.
Slide 57. Okay. Valerie, I believe this is you.
This is, yeah, me and Hillary. So I will just intro that we, you know, we in BHS are actively having conversations on a regular basis about how to approach agendizing content. We very much hear your feedback that want data, we want data, you want to hear more of a connection to the recommendations you've made. And we also are mindful that some of these very in-depth presentations are hard to pull together on a monthly basis. It's a lot for our team, and sometimes and you guys want more midpoint updates, and we want to be able to get that to you. And sometimes these very in-depth updates are not quite ready for that level each month. And so I think, you know, we're 3 years in and it can be a struggle. And so we are considering some other options, and we just wanted to take the opportunity to discuss them with you a bit. So.
And if I can just add also to what Valerie just said, I really want to reiterate the value of this group for, I'll say, for me personally and for BHS generally, and really appreciate you all coming with hard questions and feedback and having and looking, and I'm looking forward under Member Short's vice presidency to productive agendas and meaningful exchange. I want to set that tone for, I think everyone feels that way. I also sometimes feel like we are playing like catch up, like either we did this and we didn't get a chance to tell, or feels like it's kind of, or you all are saying like, what about this? And it feels sort of like outdated or not timely. So part of this is to try to move to less delayed information exchange. And I think also I feel very open, we feel very open to suggestions to make this feel like a more satisfying opportunity for all of us. And so we did have, our one main extent or thing we've been chewing on is having to what Valerie just said, shorter updates at more regular intervals that we think are probably less burdensome to our staff who are behind the scenes scrambling always on top of, busy jobs, but have more bite-sized, more regular updates. That's one thing. The other thing is just a comment on data, which I want to just reiterate what Valerie said. It's been a challenging, really since I joined, with a depleted data analysis and data analyst services that have hampered our ability to get and share timely data. I really hope in this coming year that we will be hired up, and this is something we can look forward to more regularly. It's really been a great challenge for us as a team. I just want to acknowledge that, particularly as we're standing up all kinds of new services, and we really want to be able to measure and know impact on things like wait times, like outcomes, and so forth. Anyway, so those are, should I address anything else? I mean, maybe I'll just stop there. There are other ideas for improvement that we have talked about, spoken of, is thinking about shortening a shortened meeting time. I know this was something the group was very much in favor of. At the outset, a 4-hour meeting was talked about extensively. And then the other idea we know that work group or smaller group participation has been challenging. And another idea was to alternate sort of formal meetings with work group style meetings as a way to have more and more focused exchange without without adding to people's time, which has been, I know, really hard to get. When I was speaking with Chair Lasserre sort of along the way, to always get enough people for when ideas for subcommittee or work group suggestions came up. But we are open to what members would like to see. And also could revisit this next month if folks want to think about some of this.
Any discussion? Yeah.
I know there's, I haven't done a deep dive into the bylaws, et cetera, but is there a way to get rid of some of the formalities of, all the approvals and talking about the old business and discussions and kind of maybe speed through some of that earlier? It seems like we're not getting to any of the meat potatoes every meeting until about 9:45, 9:50. I feel like the first 45, 50 minutes is generally kind of a rehash and a discussion, and we're kind of kicking off at 9:15, 9:20. And, is there a way to maybe streamline that process? I mean, you started 10 minutes late today, and her time is precious. I mean, that's,
Yeah, I don't know that there is, I go to health commission meetings every
it's just, it is.
meeting, and it feels the same way, that there's a good 45 minutes. I mean, I think we could be a little more speedy as we get going and just, commit to start on time and, all those things. I think, and then we'll get to this with location. I think if we continue to have this meeting here, and for the behavioral health staff who are presenting, we could try and be aware of their schedule like we do with Director Cunnins, and then, try sort of tell them when to come in so they're not sitting here for a long time. I think we could do a little more active management of, but all that beginning stuff.
Yeah.
And I think our land acknowledgement fell off.
Oh, yeah.
The land acknowledgement. So just to add to
Yeah, she's gonna be asked.
take a long time. And
Yeah, no, I kind of figured it was, I just kind of threw it out there, or maybe just, maybe we can all be cognizant of
getting through it all.
get through the formalities.
Yeah.
I know you're spending
Do
time.
roll call votes? Okay, yeah, I think we've asked that question every time we do, so. Anyway,
I figured
other,
as much. I figured it was a low probability question, but I throw it out there.
Say a little bit more about what short presentations might look like. think we can.
I love the idea of short presentations.
Yeah, the idea that we were discussing is we have a like an internal meeting of many folks involved in MHSF once a week where it's all, all the components and we have short updates, sort of like all the major amounts that it's done in an hour. Sometimes we have a special presentation on a particular topic, but it's kind of like same data points being covered and stuff. We may not all of that is like polished up and may not necessarily like be easy to translate to this meeting, but I just want to be a little clearer that it's kind of like we would hear from more components more frequently, but not in depth.
Valerie, these are all good ideas. And I'm gonna have to leave soon, but if we're looking at an influx of 3, 4, 5 new members, potentially, it's gonna be an enormous effort to basically integrate new membership because they'll be far behind. I don't know about James. I know it took me a long time to get up to speed. But I'm probably, and we're probably still not going 100 miles an hour. 100%. So I think it's a long learning curve, particularly if you're not that knee deep into the entire structure of not only mental health has that, but DPH and so forth. So I think that's going to be a real challenge. And I don't know how we, get the board and the mayor to at least move on that. Because I think we're on borrowed time that we could easily be with meetings coming up next month or the month after. We're not getting 7 members. Maybe one opportunity, maybe we're not, and I'll throw this over to our interim vice chair. Maybe we need a working group, a short working, we can do this with less than full complement, but a short working group to work with the chair and Valerie between now and the September meeting to flesh out some of these ideas and bring it back to the committee in September.
So a working group on presentation.
New structure of the meeting.
Yeah.
With a goal to having, maybe set a goal of having either 2 or 3 hour.
I mean, I'm running into some time crunch issues.
Yeah.
And we still haven't got to the resolution. And so, I'd like to see if we can try to move this.
Okay, so do we have volunteers for a small group that would meet to come up with a proposal for a new structure of the meetings, of shorter meetings? We can
Sure.
go afterwards, okay.
Okay.
That's great. So thank you very much for that discussion.
I'd like to kick the can down.
Now, so should we get to recommendations or location?
Should we have the
Oh.
subcommittee look at that too?
Yeah.
Why don't we
yeah.
have the committee look at the
The
issue of
recommendation.
location too?
Oh, location too.
Yeah.
Okay. There are other places we can meet in the DPH. But not where the behavioral health staff. will.
I've already got an approval for the location at my place, at the BHC 887 Patrol. Our conference room is darker.
I think that this brings up though that it's so easy for Dr. Coonens and other folks to step in and out.
Yeah.
Right. That couldn't happen. And so it's probably just a discussion that we can just table it to next time to bring back here because we lose something by not being here.
And I'm sorry, what was the purpose of why we wouldn't continue to meet here? What problem are we trying to solve?
I think that accessibility, I think, one, there's more transportation lines for people to get,
So this is
here.
about accommodating the public.
The public too, definitely,
Oh,
because
but both
we only have
members and-
in person, and I think the accessibility, and then also I think the spacing wise as well. And I think when we first got here, we said, wow, can we consider another location? And we never actually piggyback on that discussion. And location, there was another reason why.
And accessibility, and then
Parking.
parking. And then Hillary, for there, we do have other large conference rooms right in this vicinity. Can you imagine you and your staff going to like Seventh and Stevenson to Maria X? To walk over there to do presentations or
I mean, anything, like, yes, of course, and anything is likely less convenient than here, where I can, what you can imagine, I can run back to my office for a meeting and then come back here, so I know I can be more, now that we're in person, when we were remote, I could jump to other meetings as I had to and then come back in remotely, but I think coming back and forth is less likely for me. For staff, it's, typically other staff are just here for a presentation and then leave. It's obvious, anything is less convenient than being here for much for us, but not impossible either. So if the group, if that's high priority for the group,
I just want
We'll
more
make it work.
participation for the public. And then it's really hard to get into the building here, right? I mean, each time we come, we have to get escorted and, we need to use the restroom. We have to be
right,
heating. I
maybe we
mean, I
can
think
work on
I'm just-
that.
I'm just thinking how we can get more increase of participation.
Yeah.
And I do want to increase, also public involvement. I mean, I think we only have 2 online, and I think Bonnie used to be here too as well. So I'm just thinking about all this other stuff that where we can just be more inclusive and spread it out, not just us and the board. I mean, you guys are important, but I'm also thinking the participation of the public as well, because this is really also about the public as well.
all right, so the small group will discuss.
Do you want, but just do it here? We got everybody here, just do volunteers as opposed to waiting.
Oh, volunteers for the small group?
Yeah.
Okay.
The small group to work on
To
the,
what?
We'll
Oh,
work
to
on this.
restructure?
Member short volunteer.
Sarah, if you want to help, I'll be happy to volunteer.
yeah, no, I volunteered. So anybody else?
Also, sir.
Okay, so that's 3.
Salinas.
Anybody else?
Can I
Member
also
Gonzalez.
note that this month we're going to be having a community engagement discussion group. So there are 2 discussion groups. So when you're deciding about using your valuable time, there's you might think about, and Diana, who has signed up? Do we have on the doodle poll, who has signed up for the
Not
community engagement?
anybody yet, because we changed the time. So we just sent that out yesterday or the day before recently. And so we could resend out the one, this is the one for the mapping and community engagement with Interethnica. So that's out there, and we sent out a new doodle poll.
That's for it's substitute for the tomorrow, right? Oh,
Yes.
That's our interim mess.
24th.
Yes, because we never picked a final day and
Right.
then needed to change some days.
Yeah. So since we have
But
nobody
that
who's
is the other one.
Since we've had nobody sign up, there are 2 different opportunities this month to be involved. We have the planning meeting for how to have these meetings, and we have community engagement. That's meeting directly with Interethnica to start to talk about what that community engagement process is going to be. So we have Short, Lipton, and Salinas expressed interest in that before they
Gonzalez.
talked about community
And Gon-
engagement.
And Gonzalez.
And Gonzalez. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So are you asking us to consider, can we do both, or are we
You
going to
can
be
do
available for
both,
or-
but while we're
Because-
talking
no,
about it,
I'm-
let's sign up.
No, I'm not asking, can we do both? I'm saying, are you asking us to consider, are we able to do both? Do we have the capacity?
Yes.
Individually? And I would say to that, I don't know enough about what the community engagement one is yet to be able to say, oh yeah, I'm up for both. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
It does. It
it-
does.
Yeah, I don't know if that's quick, to just tell us what that is.
Right. Why don't we do that just so that we know, because so the community engagement, so DPH has the maps they are developing. They're getting close to being completed. Those like we have talked to Interethnica, and they have a design process sketched out about how they're going to take that out to the community, who's going to be involved, what the
What
outreach.
is that? Is that a PR firm or something? I don't even know what that.
Oh, Interethnica is a
Artifact
community.
company.
Yeah, Interethnica is a community engagement group. They focus, they do multicultural, multilingual engagements. They're very good. There are subcontractor to this, and they are are running, they're going to do the community engagement that's coming up that is related to the mapping. So the design has been that DPH is developing the maps, that it's about how a person ideally goes through the system. And then we need to take it out to providers that are to test it with them, and with consumers to test it with them to see like the match between the ideal and what is actually happening. So they have a design that we think is really good, but we really need your involvement to help guide them and make sure that it's, you know, what kind of design it should be, that it, all of those things. And so it would be, you'd be signing up at least for one meeting, and there'd be opportunities for you to continue to help guide them and be part of that process.
Thank you.
Yes.
I responded to both
You
of you.
Yeah,
Am I the only one? There was the first one. Yeah, and then you saw and then that one.
Okay, if you did it.
I did it on my phone, maybe it didn't work. So
Either
if
way,
somebody
we'll
else
send out the
did sign up though, besides me, that's all I'm saying. Because we were meant to do, right, isn't it part of, it is meant as part of the legislation also, we're supposed to have community meetings that haven't happened.
Yes.
Okay, so
So
I
is there,
personally think
so we
that
have,
we can
who did we
handle
have
both,
sign up
that-
for?
That both are necessary and we need to address both the meeting structure change and the engagement, and we should just do them both right now.
It's the same meeting?
No,
Oh, different.
it was just sort of raised that maybe it's a little much for us to be focusing on both of those things.
Yeah,
Same
and
time period.
I think we
And
can
I'm
do,
saying, I think
we could do two of them definitely. We've done two of them in the past, you know, but I think it's individually is thinking about, can you do two? Do you want to do two? Which one of these do you want to be involved in? We really do need to move on both, as you said, Member Short. So,
Okay.
yeah. So if I'm tracking, we have for the planning meeting, the current list is Short, Lipton, Salinas, and Gonzalez.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And do any of you and the remaining of you who would like to participate and help to start guide and shape kind of what Interethnica is going to be doing as they start to work on this mapping project and bringing it to the community, both providers and consumers?
We have Salinas,
Salinas. I'll do that one too. Hammer.
Hammer.
Member Wong, you've been very,
signed up. I had signed up.
I can sign up for the community one.
Okay, and so McGuigan and Wong also.
Yeah.
awesome.
I can have with my kids back in school right now.
Can you give me the dates again, Diane?
Sure. The date, yeah. So this is helpful, so then
We'll
we'll,
do the doodle, right?
Community McGuigan, you're in community.
awesome. All right.
Might just have to get a work day and just get a official detail.
All right, so are we ready to go on to discussion item number 4?
To public comment on discussion item number 5.
Is there, yeah, so you want to see if there's any public comments?
Yeah, I think one thing just to note, and we can bump this to the next one, but if you would go up a slide, Kaylee, we did not have a chance to talk about like status of the recommendations. So we can, let's move that to the next meeting unless you want to spend time on it. You have a decision is, do you want to stay on this and finish this or bump it? Because we still need to talk about this part.
It was fine to bump that.
To bump. Okay, thank
Is
you.
that okay?
Jen, while you're bumping that, are we going to have an implementation plan in October?
Have a what?
Is there going to be a report from the committee due in October?
There is a progress report that is going to be due in October.
Okay, so that's going to be in the agenda in September.
Yep, we're going to need to start working on that. So our team is going to be putting it together, and it's summarizing what has happened. That's what we've done in the past, is that we've summarized everything and then we've circulated it for comment. If you'd like to be more actively engaged in the development process, we're happy to invite you into that. Otherwise, we'll just present a draft for your response.
Okay. All right. No problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Internet's public for the next 3 days.
All right, public comment for item number
Yeah, so
We're okay?
Okay.
Okay.
There's nobody.
No public comment. Okay. So now we're going to go to discussion item number 4.
Okay.
We're moving to discussion item number 4, resolutions related to the street crisis response team. Valerie?
Which is slide 46.
Oh, that's,
The data?
we sent this out with the meeting materials. I wanted to respond to, I know you guys have offered feedback before that you've not seen regular data reports since the street crisis response team reconfigured. We wanted to note that they are posting dashboards again. And we sent them out with the meeting materials. Don't know if you've had the chance to review them, but we wanted to make them available to you to help inform your decision.
Okay. So, I think people, especially because the minutes that we just approved reflect the discussion that we had about these resolutions, I think people know the context, right? Or does anybody need to?
This is for the final wording
Yeah,
for voting on?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's on there.
Okay. So for the resolution on the makeup of the skirt teams, can I hand it over to you, Member Lipton? Can I hand it over to you to go over the?
Well, there were some changes in this goes back a long way. There's some changes in the whereas clauses which are reflected here. But I think we were pretty much agreed on the final wording on the actual resolution itself.
So when's the last time we made changes? There was only one time, right, that after we met and we're trying to pass it and we couldn't, and then we met.
That was at the May
offline,
meeting.
Made some edits. And then,
Came back in May and we couldn't get to quorum.
right, okay. So nothing's, I just want to make
So
sure.
now, yeah, so,
Oh, okay.
so now we have the possibility to reach quorum in approving these.
Got it.
And sorry, I'm just seeing the one. Should there be 2 slides on the 2 different ones? Oh,
There's 2 slides.
48. Okay,
Yeah, it's recommendations, right?
okay.
But it's one resolution.
Yeah.
So this is the pretext to this.
To the recommendation. Yeah.
So I just want to ask a question. So with mental health training, so your intent is that it doesn't need to necessarily be, like a licensed social worker or therapist. It can be, it can be someone who has just, it could be the EMS person. So long as.
Yeah, I think that's the question. What is that mean? Someone with mental health training? If you don't put the actual, credentials or licensing or whatever, then I don't know what the definition of that. That would kind of concern me. Because I wouldn't want it to mean, oh, we had a 1-day training about, trauma-informed care for these EMS,
So
right?
the whereas is the background does make mention of advanced behavioral health training.
Is that a slide?
That was
Yeah,
the previous slide.
If you go back up one, Kaylee?
Yeah, 47 says advanced behavioral health training.
Okay.
I'm not sure that's a defined
It
term.
helps a bit.
But it does help.
It sounds further than that 1-day, workshop or whatever.
Yeah, so then you would be looking on slide 48, Member Short, that the first one, it would say include professionals on the vehicles with advanced mental health training and experience. So would you be comfortable?
Much more, yeah.
Okay.
Like, could we say license?
I mean, I will just say that they are now able to 5150 folks,
We
right?
now are.
And they have,
Paramedics.
and they have been. And I think that, I mean, that was my primary concern, was the lack of having someone for that period of time that could actually initiate a hold, which now can be done. And I would say that, EMS 6 is different than the folks on, are they, do you know, it's the same staffing now, right? And they're
Yeah.
we've been working with them for years before this and
EMS 6,
very
yeah.
closely. And a lot of them have very excellent skills with
Yeah.
our clients and really great relationships. I think that the thing that was iffy there for a little bit was no one on those teams could initiate a hold, but now they can. So,
But the data we got from the CERT team is that very few individuals they encountered on the street received, when they had licensed behavioral workers, there was a very low percentage of individuals encountered who received holds. My understanding is that we were looking at trained
That's
licensed personnel to basically manage a crisis on the street.
de-escalate, but also
To de-escalate.
referrals and,
I don't know whether,
Yeah.
and that's what I thought the focus was. And, and you could add to that the 5150, because if you can't de-escalate, then you can move to a 5150.
I see what you mean, yeah.
but I also think, when I originally wrote this, there were a lot of other concerns too, just in terms of how this actually plays out on the streets, in terms of who folks are likely to be more open to and who they have more trust with, and, someone who's there in a uniform with a city seal or whatever, sometimes is, they're going to be less open to than the peers or clinicians, and that the clinicians, because these are specifically mental health crisis calls that they're responding to, would have, the ability to actually use de-escalation skills, but also all the referrals that might need to be made immediately, have that knowledge of the system, basically. And also be able to do a little bit of, essentially, I mean, this does happen in this day and age, sort of street therapy. I don't know, probably a better clinical term for that, but, to start gaining trust of people so that they, right, so that they would be able to be open to continuing to work with, get, connected to those other services they need. Because again, this is a crisis thing. They're not actually providing the services right there. So, I mean, those are just some of my thoughts. So I think it's a bigger role than just 5150s or just de-escalation, as to why we wanted to have that advanced mental health.
So do you want to add the
training.
word advance in paragraph 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would like to
Next,
make it
Can I
make it
ask-
consistent too.
On
Their addenda?
on the second.
paragraph 1 on the next one. Yeah. I've got about 2 minutes, so
So
we need him.
Instead of
I'd like to
regular
get it-
reports, can we go back to saying the monthly reports? I mean, because the gist of it is that we'd want to see data, right? In order to see how,
Wait, what had we said?
it just says regular. On number 3,
Please, good.
it says will include resumption of regular reports. I think we have to be very.
Please, great.
the next page.
Okay. So we're adding, so everybody's fine with these two whereases?
Yes.
We're not changing these. On the next slide, in clause 1, we're adding advanced to before the mental health training. And in clause 3, we are replacing the word regular with monthly.
Yes.
Number 3, it says quarterly, just FYI.
So monthly's better.
No, those are the
No,
reports
they're
to the IWG.
Yeah.
The first sentence
Top,
is
yeah.
the monthly data.
Okay,
We
sorry.
used to get
Okay.
monthly data before, yeah.
Jane, can we skip the temperature check and move right to a motion?
Yeah, we can. I mean, it's just a way to make sure that we actually are in, once you go through this, it's either accepted or not. Do you want to make sure that everyone is in a position and feels comfortable with what's written down?
And
More.
progress.
Is there anybody who's
Yeah.
like Julie, about moving forward?
I like it.
Let's vote.
Are you guys okay?
And I feel like I need some time to sort of, I feel like we're rushing into this. I feel like
You know.
it was, yeah.
I'm sorry to do this.
I know, it's you.
I've got to go.
So are we saying like,
I mean, if somebody's not comfortable with it right now, I don't feel like we can rush them, even if it's just one person.
Or,
I mean, so that's.
but question,
It is,
or if we got an abstention, would that affect the, yeah.
yeah, because we only got 7 for quorum.
I got one to do math very well, yeah. I'm a social worker.
We need all.
Yeah, then but we gotta respect that. If she needs to chew on it, then we gotta need to chew on it.
So we have a motion to change the wording, but we're gonna table the vote on accepting the resolution.
Okay. You have any wiggle room to stay tiny bit, like, I didn't know what you meant, if it's like, I just need to think about it for a minute, or if it's like,
No, I need to, no.
Okay. we're not gonna get away with that then.
Like way back and now we're like bringing it
Okay.
back and like, where were we? And then like,
There was all this discussion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
I think we should give you as much time, well, not all the time you want, but give you time to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I think you're gonna have over 30 days. This is the 4th Thursday and it was the 5th Thursday.
Oh. All right. So now we are going to go to slide 50.
Yes.
Well, no, because we're not gonna, we're not gonna vote on these.
Right, but you still need public comment even. I'm
Okay, okay.
not voting, I
All right, so let's do public comment.
Okay. So are there any members of the public who would like to comment on discussion item 4, either in person or
We
actually
only have
any in-person comments on discussion item 4? As a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes and I will give you a 30-second time it's almost up.
Either right, what I asked you.
I just wonder, as a member of the public, how long are you gonna wait so everybody feels comfortable, like reviewing? I mean, this came up 3 months ago. I just feel like it's something they should probably move on, as the longer it's like the way it is, the harder it's gonna be to change.
We'll vote on it next month. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Nope, nobody's, okay, yes, public comment is closed.
Okay, and then Diana, I think we're to slide 61.
61. Yes. Slide 1, please. This is public comment on any other matter within the jurisdiction of the committee that is not on the agenda. So let me make sure again to refresh to see if there's anybody online. No public online. Is there anybody in person who would like to comment on any other matter within the jurisdiction of the committee that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, I would say public comment should be closed for this.
And then Jen, I think it's to you.
Yeah, so at our next meeting, we're planning to have an update on the staffing and wages study, Interethnica, where if we can get a community engagement group. Is there a hand? No, I just somebody's leaving. Okay.
We can get a community engagement group, Jennifer.
Yeah, we have to for each of the 2 discussion groups.
Yeah, so they will, so
Optimism.
Interethnica will be here to talk about that as a full group then. Probably some continuation of the budget conversation, and we'll have the progress report, feedback and approval. And there's some other topics that we're considering, but I'm anticipating that this small group, which is Short-Lived and Salinas and Gonzalez, are talking about process. Maybe you can, we can talk a little bit about experimenting with some of these upcoming, if there's ways to do those short updates or something.
I will, I'm sorry, I'm just doing my creepy winning on the table to add that I'm still working on scheduling with the staffing and wages. There's a couple scheduling complications. So it's a little bit pending. I will say that they could provide us an overview on the bed optimization study. So refreshing our bed optimization study. That means how many beds do we have available? How many should we design for? Is available to come in September. So we will be penciling them in for sure. Staffing and wages is still pending. And new vice chair can discuss. I will reach out to you in the interim about.
Who's that?
And then Jen, just, will you make a note that we're also going to vote on the skirt resolution?
Yes. Yeah, I
And the
have that
budget
down.
conversation We did here this time, so we should have taken that off.
Which one?
Budget we did this time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I think that's it. Right? So.
Oh, we did the house.
Yeah, the map yesterday, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that, yeah.
Yeah, there's one more slide just showing some meeting times which people can refer to. And then thank you everyone for your active engagement in the meeting. Our next meeting is on September 24th. Unless announced differently, it'll be here at 9 a.m. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
September 24th or 26th?
Sorry, mine says 24th, but you're probably right.
Let's see, is it 26?
Yeah, that's going to be Thursday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is the 26th.
Yeah.
Good catch. So the next meeting is
Again,
September 26th.
right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you could.
There's some that.
Motion, yes.
All right.
It's a motion
like-
to adjourn?
Be like a.
McGuigan seconded it.
That's all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the pen.
Did you get my email?
Hand it back.
Can't do.
Bye, kids. Bye, everybody.
That's right. I on that, I wanted to do that epic.
Yeah,
I can't do that afternoon.
Let's go back to her admin. We'll get some more time.
That's fine. Yeah. Just like after 3 right now is crazy with me because I